Surface, open the Zoom because that's what I have it downloaded on and have like set up for like my work account. Whereas my personal, it kept trying to open up like my personal Zoom. I'm like, no, we're not doing this.
So just for anybody who's out there listening, we have about a minute to go before 7 o'clock. And we will open with a prescribed opening and a little discussion of process. John, is there anybody on the planning board that you know won't be on here tonight?
It's right here and here.
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Just checking my phone. Hey, Ethan, would you get me a couple cough drops, babe?
It's a good call on the cough drops. I should have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it's so hard. And I hope I don't sound like,
No, you sound fine.
Yeah, but I hope while I'm sucking on a cough drop, it's not obnoxious.
Oh.
I think we can mute ourselves if we need to cough or something, right?
Yeah.
You likely won't be able to unmute yourself.
So
Oh.
if you mute yourself on your headphones,
Oh, I
then you
just
can
saw Frank
unmute
check
yourself. But if you
Okay.
unmute yourself, if you mute yourself through Zoom, then you cannot unmute yourself later.
Okay, so I will just take my headphones off if I need to cough.
Yeah, or I don't know if you have a like I have a mute button on my headset,
There's
so I
Mary,
can mute
and
it from
Frank
here.
checked in too.
Hi, Mary. With everybody's forbearance, we'll wait just a couple more minutes because of the Zoom platform and see if we have a couple more people arrive. Oh, there's Frank.
Am I muted or you can still hear me?
I can hear you, Amy.
I can hear you.
Okay, so I don't have mute on my headphones, I don't think.
Okay.
You're good.
Can people see me now?
What is that?
Even though I'm looking at stuff?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
Are people able to see me even though I'm on my laptop looking at?
I can see you.
I can see you.
Yeah. So we're still waiting for Dave. And this is terrible.
Dave joined. He has not started video though.
Okay.
Or audio.
All right, Dave, you got to jump on with audio and video. Oh, there's Roy. I don't see Dave on my list. I believe you. I just don't see it.
I see him.
Yeah, we have 2 screens worth of people now.
Yeah, he's on my second screen.
So how do you open up a second screen?
Page over.
There's an arrow on the right or left.
If you put your mouse on the the outer edges of the left
Yeah.
or right, you can see like one of 2 and
I don't
Oh, yeah.
see that.
So do you have it in like gallery view?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you can see like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, yeah, if you like,
just move your mouse directly down from where it says speaker view now then. And as you move your mouse down, you'll see one of 2 with an arrow.
Yeah, I just, so,
I see Dave now.
Oh yeah, no, now that he's unmuted.
Hi, Dave.
oh, I see Dave too. Shh. No, that's not what I want to do.
Is it possible to do a split screen or do we have to keep going back and forth?
It shows up however you like it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I think that we should start. It's 7:04. So I'll entertain a motion to open the planning board meeting of 4/23/20.
So moved.
I'll take Gary and Jane. Gary first, Jane second. All those in favor, aye.
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 And we'll open the public hearings, and then I do have to have a opening statement. So I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearings for tonight.
So moved.
Amy?
Yep.
And Jane?
Second.
Oh,
Second.
Mary, second,
Mary.
thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Actually, to be honest with you, I realized that we have to do a roll call vote every time. So I'll just go through the screen. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Yes.
Deb Feinberg?
Yes.
Amy Ritterbush?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Gary? You have to say yes. Gary, you have to say your name and yes.
Sorry. Yes, Gary Trendle, I was muted. Sorry.
Rob?
Yes.
Mary Marlowe?
Yes, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Sorry, Mary Larson
That's okay.
Marlowe. Frank Durso?
Frank Durso, yes.
Dave Paul? I don't think Dave here. Dave Paul, can you say yes to open the hearings? I don't think he hears me. We have enough votes to open the hearing, so ladies and gentlemen, as a preliminary matter, I have to read a script for this way of conducting hearings. So this is Muriel Kramer, Planning Board Chair. Permit me to confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So Gary Trendle,
Yes.
Jane Moran,
Jane Moran, yes.
Rob Benson,
Rob Benson, yes.
Dave Paul. Dave can't hear us or speak to us yet for some reason, John. Frank Durso,
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe. Mary Larson Marlowe.
I don't see her anymore.
Oh, no, we lost her.
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Deb Feinberg.
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
All right.
Yes for Mary.
Oh, there's Mary back. Thank you. Can we take a minute and make sure we help Dave get connected? I don't think I have his.
I just texted him.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's been putting his phone to his ear, so
Yeah. So that's you, Gary, that's texting him?
yes, I texted him.
All right, I'm gonna leave technical help to you to try and get him connected. All right. Let's see. We should have Todd McDowell, although I saw Roy McDowell, who is muted at the moment. Can we, we're supposed to confirm that he can hear and speak. I'm waiting, Roy.
He's speaking, but he's not unmuted.
He can't
Yeah.
unmute himself.
Right. so
Maybe
we have
Roy,
to
if you give us a
unmute him.
wave, does
Oh,
that
yeah.
suffice? No,
There he
it has to
is.
be audio.
He's
Oh.
unmuted. You're unmuted. You're here. We just have to confirm that people can be heard and seen. Joe, yes. Joe Markadont? I have to wait to unmute him.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Check if you can come in.
Maybe you can just wave, Joe. Okay. I see Phil Paradise. We don't expect Lou Petrosi. Is that right, John?
Oh, John is muted.
Yeah.
John's muted as well.
John?
No, we do not expect Luke Petrosi.
Okay. Pedro Rodriguez?
Pedro should be unmuted.
I don't see him on my.
Pedro is not unmuted. He is still on mute.
He said yes, I think, but I'll unmute him again. Hold
Oh,
on.
I see him. Okay.
Okay.
Chuck Joseph?
I don't know if he is on.
All right, we'll have to hold on to that, and make sure that. Ken Marsters and Dave Marquidant.
Joe is here. Unmuting him. Joe, you're unmuted.
Ken
Joe, can you
Marsters.
hear us?
It's Ken Marsters and Dave Marquidant.
Well, Joe Marquidant's here. Joe, can you hear us?
Yep,
Yes, I can.
yep.
All right. Are you filling in for Dave, or is Dave also joining?
No, Dave's handling his own.
All right,
I
so
don't
we'll
know
have
if
to
Dave
check
is
on
here.
them. And Tom Garabedian.
I don't see him.
He does not look like he is on.
Okay,
Hold on, got a chat. All
Hey,
right, so Dave sent me his phone number.
all right.
All right, Dave, can you hear us on the phone now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great, Dave. Good to see you and have you here. Thank you. So Dave Paul
Good to
has
be-
joined the
Good to
meeting
be seen.
and heard. Okay, so as we go forward, we will have to make sure that our presenters are able to get in and be seen and be heard. This is an introduction to the remote meeting. Good evening. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we are complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as the public body makes provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment and will further include several public hearings. For this meeting, the planning board is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one or more of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The meeting materials, meeting support materials and packets, all supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We're going to start very quickly with the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in dialogue with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Not every agenda item will feature public comment. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. When the meeting is to adjourn, I will request a motion to adjourn the meeting. There will be a roll call vote at that time. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the audience, I first want to tell you how much we appreciate that you're here, how much we are thinking about everybody. I know that everybody is challenged by these current circumstances. My family, the same as everybody's. We hope from the planning board, from me, we hope that everybody listening here tonight is well and is able to stay safe. We are a very dedicated board to transparency of process and enabling the public's ability to impact the process. I know that there has been substantial interest and even concern, in particular about some of the zoning articles. I intend to first speak to the planning board about a process that I hope bolsters the public's confidence and ensures that you will be able to participate fully in the process. I know that this format is a little clunky. It's not really comfortable for me either. So I appreciate everybody's patience as we proceed with this meeting. So the first piece of, we have opened the public hearings. The first piece of business will be the administrative items. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a recommendation for process on the zoning articles in particular, if the board will entertain that first. It's just a process conversation. We have a scheduled meeting for Monday. And just as a formality, we posted the continuation of all the zoning articles for that meeting on Monday because it had to be done before we meet tonight in order to satisfy the posting requirements for open public meeting. But I would like to have a conversation tonight, certainly about the zoning articles that are in front of us. They will all be definitively continued to Monday night, no matter what even if we think we have closed out the discussion, we're going to continue to Monday night. For the solar overlay district, which has generated so much interest and public comment, I would like the board to contemplate considering continuing it just as a formality, purposefully to the first meeting in June before annual town meeting that has been rescheduled, so that hopefully we can ensure that the public has an opportunity to speak face to face in a hearing if they still so need to. It doesn't hurt us, even if we have closed out the comment and people are satisfied and nobody comes, it still doesn't do anything to interrupt the process in preparation for town meeting. So it's just a proposal that I hope gives members of the public more comfort with the process going forward to town meeting. So I am just posing that as a process question. If you could raise your hand if you had a comment. Jane Moran.
As I'm first on board, I don't think it's a great idea because the feedback I've been getting from a lot of folks around town is that they really want to hear this process played out. And I think if we put it off to June 1st, I don't think that it's going to allow us enough time. I think if we start the conversation tonight and continue it Monday, maybe with any luck, we might be able to come to a conclusion by June 1. But I just think that there's so much controversy around this that it needs to be played out. And I don't think it's going to do us any good to try and stall it.
Okay, so let me just I'm not back and forth. I just want to make sure you understand. I'm not trying to stall it. I'm trying to make sure that the public knows that we'll have a public forum meeting at the end, even if we have concluded all the conversation and business. And it would just, at that point, if nobody had anything more to say, it would be the formality of the vote. It's just something to consider.
No, I agree. But just on my list of notes, I have 4 items that I'd like to bring up, and I think that they would all be of interest to a majority of the folks in Hopkinton who are interested in this. And I'm not sure how we can cover all of this in tonight or even Monday. No, and I know we couldn't do it by June 1. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else? Frank?
Hi, I agree with what both of you were saying. I love that your Great Dane is as tall as your shoulder behind you. I think that I agree with that if it's held later separately with more space to discuss it, it would be better. But then Jane's point is, we were kind of scheduled to talk about it today and maybe go into next Monday. So maybe that's what people in the audience, if there are people in the audience that are here to talk about it or listen. So I just want to support both views of it, and I'm kind of in between.
So I want to discuss it. I want to use the time we have between now and town meeting to discuss it. My proposal was that if we aren't confident that we have been able to include members of the public as fully as we want, that we just simply, as a formality, leave the decision open until we are able to meet in a fully public forum. It may not be necessary. I just wanted to suggest that as a possible, not to not talk about it. We're definitely going to talk about it tonight. Rob?
Yeah, makes total sense. Trying to conduct this meeting over Zoom meeting. I'm on Zoom meetings all day long, and having 50 people in a Zoom meeting in this forum for this purpose, just our agenda was set before it became a remote meeting. We'd be lucky to get through half of the stuff on the agenda. Having that important discussion in person as a final ability to do so before a vote, it just makes total sense.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So we will at least keep it in our heads. We're going to have the conversation on as much as we can get through. We're certainly going to have the conversation on the overlay district, but to just keep it in mind that we may contemplate keeping it open until we can fully engage with and feel as though the public has had its opportunity impacted and be informed is at least something I want to make sure that we all keep at the forefront of our minds. John, will you take us through the administrative items, please?
The first administrative item is the Legacy Farms Road North Form K for Lot A23 and the restricted land covenants. And this was brought up at an earlier meeting and continued.
I see Mr. McDowell is in the audience, but still muted.
I will unmute him now. He's unmuted.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Roy McDowell from Legacy Farms.
Hi, Roy.
Hi.
We just wanted to finish the conversation on the Form K lot release.
Yes, it's a Form K, and it's also the restricted land covenants that go along with that.
Can you remind the board and the public what is involved with the Form K lot release?
So the Form K is something whenever we do a closing with a buyer, the town sign off not only on the Form K, but also on the restrictive land covenants. With each closing, we have a requirement to meet a certain amount of restricted land for each project. And that's what these are for.
Okay, so could you also, just for the members of the public who have been very interested, could you give us an update on the open items that I know the public is interested in, and that would be the payments for the schools, the work on the road and the intersection?
Sure, I can give you an update on all the items. So I've been working very closely, my team has, with with Norman and with Ray on an agreement. We're looking at a more global agreement, not just the school item, but a number of other items that we have in front of Norman and Ray right now, and they give us back a proposal. I'm hoping that comes to conclusion very quickly, and that'll all be taken care of. As far as the East Main Street lights go, the plans have been approved, the lights have been ordered. They were out there earlier this week putting in test pits for the footings for the lights. So that's in process. And once the soil samples come back, the footings and the conduits will be in the ground and in the road. And once the lights arrive, the lights will be installed. So that's fully in process. And I know Beta's been working closely with VHB on that. As far as Legacy North goes, Western Nurseries is completing the planting as we speak. If you've driven up there, you've probably seen hundreds of trees going in. They're going to be completing that. We finally got the attention of Eversource on that perennial manhole that's always leaking. And I believe they're getting out there next week with our contractor. They're going to drain the manhole down and they're going to do some repairs, and hopefully that'll get resolved, because we need to do that before we pave the road. Now, the paving of the road itself is scheduled for, I believe at this point, the third week of May. It's been a little difficult. We were hoping sooner, but given the virus and all, everybody's behind on things. But our intention is to get that work done in the punch list there for Beta to review before the end of May. As far as the sidewalk in East Main Street, the original contractor we had, some of his people have been out sick, so we're trying to get another contractor to take care of that this spring.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members?
Just a comment.
Jane?
I walk that path twice a day, or the Legacy Farm sidewalk, and I just want to give my accolades to the project that McDowell is putting forth. There are literally hundreds of trees and lots of different varieties with flowering trees and deciduous trees and evergreen. It's just, it's going to be beautiful. So.
Thank you.
Amy?
I had a question that I received from a member of the public. Let's see, people were concerned about the social distancing and the construction still going on. But to clarify, I tried to look it up, and it looks like new construction can still go on during the social distancing. And can you talk about your social distancing precautions that you're taking with your workers?
Yes, well, most people right now are wearing masks and socially distancing. I think gloves are probably a good idea as well. I know at some of our other construction sites, we're making it mandatory that we have people wear masks and keep a social distance away from each other.
Gary?
I have a question and a potential comment, and I know, Mr. McDowell, you said you were working through the payment options with the town. I'm assuming that's for 2020, but I'm wondering if you have yet paid the payments that were due in 2019.
I believe that's supposed to be paid by June 20th, and I think they will definitely be paid hopefully before that.
Okay. So if I could just make a comment, I just want to express that I don't support moving forward on these lot releases. There's a number of outstanding items, and none of these have been delivered in the timing that was originally committed to. So just from my perspective, speaking as an individual on the board, I'm not supportive until we see some further progress on at least several of these outstanding items.
Any other members of the board? Frank?
Yes, I'm wondering, Gary, if you could outline some of the things that you're concerned about.
Through the chair, may I comment?
Yes. Thank you, Gary.
So the 2019 payments have not been paid yet, and we're past that deadline. The leaking manhole cover has not yet been addressed. The traffic light is well past the date that it was originally committed to. So those three right there are things that I think are outstanding that we're committed to that have not been delivered yet.
Yeah. Could I address those?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. McDowell.
Okay, so the leaky manhole has been a frustration of ours as well, but I hope you understand that we've been after Eversource for a year to deal with that. And they made it very clear that that's their manhole, go in it or touch it without their permission. So we've been asking for a long, long time. We finally got the attention of the appropriate engineers who finally came out, agreed with how they think it should be done, and they're now allowing it to happen. We would have done this a year ago. It's been a frustration to us as well, but I can't control a public utility. As far as the lights go, there was quite a long time, unfortunately, with VHB designing the lights. And of course, Beta had approved the lights. There was a lot of back and forth going on between both to get them the way the town wanted in the end, and staying on top of everybody. This is something we have no interest in delaying. The minute the materials are available, we install to be done with it as well.
If I could follow up, though, there is a substantial amount of public interest in the school payments that are seriously delayed.
Well, it's interesting you say that because of the interpretation. I've had multiple meetings with my attorney, with Norman, and in my attorney's interpretation, it's not due to the end of June. But we're gonna resolve this very shortly. Okay, I'd like to get it resolved next week or two. We're just waiting back from Norman.
So I can assure you that the public would love to see it resolved as well.
The minute we hear from Norman and resolve this, that payment will be made immediately.
It's not clear to me what needs to be resolved. There are some payments that have been due for a long time that there's nothing to resolve. It's not an ongoing negotiation. Those are past due payments.
Yeah, I'd rather not discuss in a public forum, but I think you could discuss with Norman. I'd be happy to talk about it offline.
Okay, so can you tell the members of the board what the consequences are for you not having the Form K lot release? What is the priority?
It's supposed to be ministerial, just like an AM.
Yeah.
The way we arranged it, it's a formality that needs to happen before we can make a sale or a closing. So if we don't have the Form K signed, or if we don't have the restricted land covenant signed off and recorded.
I think you froze. Roy, we can't hear you at the moment. I'm sorry. Gonna wait a beat. John, why don't you move us forward to approval not required plan for 147 Lumber Street, and we'll hopefully get Mr. McDowell back.
All right. So the Lumber Street, and I'm going to unmute Mr. Chirko.
Perfect.
And Joe, is this yours as well? I'll unmute Joe. So this is to split up a lot into 3 different lots, and the 3 different lots, or sorry, 4 different lots. 3 of the lots are non-buildable as marked on the plan, and they're going to be deeded over to the 3 different owners. Assume that those lots are then going to be condensed into their own lots.
Does anybody?
Joe and Ben are unmuted to discuss.
Joe and Ben, go ahead. Please introduce yourself and let us know anything you need us to know about that.
Good evening, Joe Macrodon. Ben is the owner of number 147 Lumber Street. He'd like to transfer 2 parcels to abutting neighbors, Mr. Bullock and Ms. Jovan at number 157 and 163 Lumber Street, respectively. They'll receive parcels on the southerly end of Ben's property. None of Ben's frontage is altered. The remaining area on his parcel is 37.7 acres. So no issues with zoning setbacks, frontage area on the remaining land. And the neighbors get a little extra land at the rear of their properties and the side of their properties.
Mr. Chirko, did you want to add anything?
Ben Chirko, 147 Lumber Street. No, I think Joe covered it all. Thank you.
Just letting you know, Ben, you're a little hard to hear.
I think Joe, Ben Chirko, 147 Lumber, I think Joe covered it well. Thank you.
Okay. Are there questions from members of the board?
These are all non-buildable lots, correct? The new small lots.
Correct. They're in the rear of their homes and to the side of their homes.
Okay.
So no frontage. They'll just add extra area to those lots.
Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
That's Frank Durso that moved it.
Second.
Jane Moran seconded it. I'll remind people that we have to take a roll call vote. Muriel Kramer, yes.
Amy
Jane
Ritterbush-
Moran.
oh,
I'm
sorry.
gonna go around so I keep track of you. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Jane
it's in
Moran, it's different.
Moran, yes.
different order.
Deb Feinberg,
Deb Feinberg, yes.
Amy Ritterbush,
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Gary Trendell,
Gary Trendle, yes.
Rob Benson. You have to say it audibly, Rob.
Rob Benson, yes.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul, yes.
Oh,
I think Frank-
and I lost people. I'm sorry. Frank Durso,
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe, Mary Larson Marlowe.
Mary may be herself.
She's
Oh,
muted.
she's muted. It has to be an
Yeah.
audible vote, Mary. I'm sorry.
I know, but I couldn't unmute myself.
Mary's unmuted herself.
So, yes, Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Okay, I think I got everybody. Did I get everybody? Okay,
So-
so you're
so-
all set.
Sorry, this
Oh.
is
Oops.
this was delayed, but you should be seeing the plan right now.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll stop sharing. So,
All right.
just as a matter of process through the chair,
Yes.
since no one can sign it right now,
Yes.
we're going to have to schedule people coming into town hall to sign one at a time. So we'll get that done after the meeting.
Okay, and how many signatures do you need?
We need 5.
Okay, so whatever we need signed, we should make sure that those same 5 people do everything. So not
Yep.
everybody has to come in. Okay. Let's do the minutes quickly if we can. I'll entertain a motion on the February 24th minutes.
I had some minor modifications for that.
Hold on one second. How about this? Can I ask Gary to make the motion and Amy to make the second, and then we'll discuss the minutes? How about that? So Gary, can I have a motion on the February 24th minutes?
I move to accept the minutes from February 24th, 2020.
Amy, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Comments? Deb, was that you?
Yeah, if I can find it. I had some minor modifications that I sent to Stephanie last week. Trying to pull them up so I can read you the wording. Thought I saved it in my PDFs. It's just minor modifications to the wording. And for some reason, I don't have it on my screen.
Would Stephanie have it?
Yes, Steph,
I
if you
do.
know what they are.
Yep. Do you want me to read what it is?
Be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So, under, for the Maspinock Woods, it just says Ms. Feinberg believe that they have gone above and beyond, and she would like to add in to consider the existing site structure and wetlands in the new proposal.
So that's the the whole change you wanted to make, Deb?
Yes.
All right. Gary, can you consider it a friendly amendment to accept the minutes as amended?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor, again, it's going to be a roll call vote, and please be patient with me. It's easier for me if I just call on you. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane Moran.
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb Feinbrug.
Deb Feinberg, yes.
Amy Ritterbush.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Harry Trundle.
Gary Trendle, yes.
Rob Benson.
Rob Benson, yes.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank Durso.
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe.
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion, Gary, on the minutes for March 9th.
Yes, I'd like to move the minutes for March 9th, 2020.
Amy Roderbush, second.
Thank you. Is there any comments or corrections to those minutes?
No.
All right. Then we'll take a vote. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane Moran.
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb Feinbrug.
Deb Feinberg, yes.
Amy Ritterbush.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Gary Trundle.
Gary Trendle, yes.
Rob Benson.
Rob Benson, yes.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank Durso.
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe.
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, the minutes of April 13th, 2020.
Move the minutes from April 13th, 2020.
Amy Roderbush, second.
Okay, any comments, changes, or corrections?
Not at this time.
All those in favor, Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane Moran.
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb Feinberg.
Yes.
Amy Ritterbush.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Gary Trundle.
Gary Trendle, yes.
Rob Benson.
Rob Benson, yes.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank Durso.
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary Larson Marlowe.
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Now, Mary, if you could introduce and take us through, and I so appreciate that you did this, the site selection criteria for the solar overlay district.
Yes. John, I assume you can pull up the slides and share it? I mean, I can do it. I don't want to mess things up. And these two slides are really just to clarify for everyone involved so that we don't rediscuss things that have already been discussed. And so it's crystal clear to everyone what we're trying to do with the solar overlay district. So the Zoning Advisory Committee voted to bring forward an article to town meeting this year that creates a solar overlay district, and that only parcels within the solar overlay district would be able to receive special permits to have commercial solar installations. So on this first slide, I talk about this is if the solar overlay district is passed, these parcels included in the overlay district will still require planning board and Concom approval process to review adequate screening, protection of wetlands, stormwater management, etc. Parcels that are not included in this overlay district, if the overlay district passes, parcels not included would require town meeting approval to be added to the overlay district prior to applying for a permit for the ground-based commercial solar installation. I think people are pretty clear on that. And then just to clarify again, exempt from the commercial solar bylaw now, currently, and if the solar overlay district passes, the exemptions are any residential and commercial roof-mounted solar. So we're not talking about any of those at all. They're exempt. Any solar built over parking lots and anything else that is accessory to the primary use of the lot. Okay, so anytime those situations come into play, it has nothing to do with this zoning bylaw. Okay, are all those points clear?
I have some suggestions, but I can email them to you for
Okay.
add a little bit more language. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to do more extensive slides for the town meeting itself. I just wanted to do something simple for this. The second slide talks about the criteria for inclusion. Now, these are the criteria that essentially the zoning advisory committee tried to use when creating the parcels or deciding on parcels to include in the solar overlay district. However, there's a subjectiveness to this. And obviously not everybody agrees that, we've satisfied the criteria and that certain parcels should be allowed. But this is what we tried to use to make the decisions. The parcels that were initially included were satisfied, not all of these, but at least one of the following criteria. There was existing commercial solar installation on that parcel, or there was an approved but not yet built commercial solar installation on the parcel, or there was an application for a commercial solar installation already received by the town on that parcel, or the parcels had one or more of the following criteria: minimal wooded area, so clear cutting of trees would not be necessary. Distance, the relative distance from residential neighborhoods, such as the 495 Central Corridor, and ample space on the lot for visual screening, maintenance of noise screening, etc. And or unsuitable for other development. And that was totally in our own judgment, that was not necessarily truly deemed unsuitable. So that is essentially the criteria that we used. It certainly could be argued whether or not these are appropriate criteria, but I don't think that's the point of this discussion today. The point is what is appropriate to include, what exact parcels are appropriate to include in a solar overlay district.
So through the chair, Muriel,
Yeah, Dave.
I would like to raise my hand, but I don't know how to do it electronically. So whenever is a good moment for me to make a comment.
So I'm gonna, pardon me, I only see, when the screen is being shared, I just want to say, I only see a few people. Oh, I guess I can scroll up and down.
There's a
but-
grid button you can hit, Muriel, and then you can see a bigger grid.
And I had that
Go to-
before.
You can go to
Let's-
full screen and see 25.
I
That's what I
think the
see.
down button will get you where you want to go.
All right. here we
So
go.
through the chair, I'm also watching the participant.
That's what
list.
I was
So if
going
somebody
to
raises
ask,
their hand, I'll let you know.
honest, to make sure that you keep me honest. Dave, go ahead. What was your question or
So,
comment?
first is a comment. I think Mary did a great job with this, and I like it. It's a lot better than what we have today. But I did have one question about an alternative to this. I know, it's just I just wanted to mention it. I don't think we need to discuss it in detail, but I wanted to ask the question to the group. I think I'm going to look for John in a second to back me up, because John sent me some information that I asked for about what other towns are doing. And the way I haven't looked at it in a month or so, but the way I understood the email was that they were allowing solar by zoning. So they would only allow it on industrial and business and not on agriculture. So I was just curious why we wouldn't also go that route. John, did I say that correctly, John?
Like you, it's been a while since I looked at that email, so I'm trying to find it right now to see what I said to you.
Yeah,
So
because it might be
Repeat it
good
for
just
me.
to mention towns.
Repeat it for me, Dave.
So the way I interpret the email, I think John checked with 5 or 6 other towns, and he can give a list of them when he finds the email. I apologize, John, for not giving you a heads up on this.
It's all right.
But I think they allowed solar in business districts and industrial districts, but not in agricultural.
So yes, and I think, go ahead, Mary.
That particular idea was not discussed at zoning advisory committee. It was not information that we were aware of, and we didn't consider that as part of the process. But it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, maybe we can suggest it, sorry, through the chair, we can suggest it for next year for the zoning committee to look at.
Yeah,
And I
Dave,
just-
you teed up a really nifty idea and conversation. I think that Gary and I and John had an opportunity to talk about a couple weeks ago when we thought we were going to be meeting last week. And that is to delineate a go forward process. So we have the basic overlay district, which was an attempt, a really solid attempt to start a process that's workable and reasonable and sensible, and then detail out a go forward process in the way that Gary and John and I were thinking about it. Obviously, it's up for conversation here, but was to sort of just exactly what you said, keep a running tally of things that we think we might want the ZAC to consider, utilize that ZAC process, and entertain this overlay district as intentionally as a work in progress over the next couple of years, even to refine it. So the process is really predictable for the public to access, and that there is a little bit more time involved through the process on changes. So I would love it if we kept a list of suggestions as they go forward for ZAC members to think about going forward.
So just a quick follow-up through the chair. So yeah, so I think that's great because I was just thinking that, I mean, I want this to pass, but perhaps it doesn't pass. So if it doesn't pass, we will have a couple options. We could either retweet this plan or discuss other plans. So
Yeah.
the only thing and Mary even suggested herself, the only thing I don't like about this is the subjectivity, creating a new district. Whereas if you go with the alternative, you already have defined, well-known districts. Thank you.
Yeah. So Jane Moran.
Sure. So I appreciate Mary's hard work going into this criteria for the overlay district. My question is, what about objective criteria for the planning board? Are we doing a fair job by not considering objective criteria?
Can you, I'm
There's
sorry,
a lot of
Jane.
questions out there.
Jane, be specific. What objective criteria do you think we are not considering?
Well, I don't think we're squaring the two. For instance, the original map included, as Mary says in her slides, existing solar commercial districts or property owners who have already submitted an application. What we're not considering is these orange spots, and we've just we've plugged in various spaces, and I don't think that we've really identified the criteria for why they were plopped in there. For instance, the properties behind Charles View and things like that, they were never subjected to that. And so how is it that we're just plucking them in there?
Yeah,
My
Jane,
second point is.
hey, Jane, can we
Yeah.
talk about one point at a time? And I don't want to cut you off, but these are big points. Is that
Sure,
okay?
so
if we sort of, if
I'm
we
ready
talk-
to move on to the second point.
You don't want to talk about the first one?
You just asked for ideas and thoughts. I didn't
Sure.
think you
Go ahead.
wanted a discussion. So,
Yep.
I mean, I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah,
them,
no,
but-
we're gonna, but go ahead. What's the other one?
Okay, so the second one is for the overall map that we're looking at beside me.
Mhm.
I've had an opportunity to talk to a couple of different commercial solar development people. And my question to Zach would be, number one, had you considered talking to some of these big construction companies? Because the feedback I'm getting, and I don't know if it's truth or not, but I think it's worth a discussion, is that these professional commercial developers would never even think of developing a commercial farm on the medium strips, is what I've heard, because of two reasons. Number one is the danger of damage for, trailer trucks rolling over into the medium strip and destroying their property and things like that, things that they can't control. Number two, and probably is the most prominent one, is that the solar commercial properties would never even think of building in the medium strips because it's cost prohibitive, because they won't put out, it's like moving telephone poles. It's humongous, huge bucks, and it's not, they could never get back the money that they would propose to think of gaining if they have to drill underneath 80 feet, 100 feet of roadway to get and run the wire, just the power lines that are required for these solar farms, never mind all of the infrastructure problems that would go into that. So number three is, well, I'll just go with three, but the strong language that we got from town council on a letter dated March 6th, which was
So
last
Jane,
meeting, which we continued.
hey, Jane, we're going to talk about the specifics of the zoning, proposed zoning change. This is more process, but we're going to do that when
Exactly.
we're talking.
So my question is, why are we even proceeding with the process with the strong language with the town council strongly advises that we don't go forward with this? And that's it for now.
Okay. Jane, Mary.
Oh, hi. Oh, okay. So first of all, in terms of the additional lots that have been added since our first discussion, those are still under discussion. They're not being proposed as being added yet because we haven't discussed them yet. So they're going through the process right now. Secondly, in terms of whether or not the median strip is appropriate, I don't think any of our zoning discussions really take into account what developers might want to do and what's the most appropriate place to put things. And whether or not, so we may allow it in the medium strip, and whether or not they ever do develop something in the medium strip is entirely up to them. And it's not based on, today's technology and what somebody wants to do today or tomorrow, but, could be in a few years or whatever. But mostly we're saying we don't want it necessarily elsewhere. And that is what this particular overlay district is talking about. However we move forward with it, we don't necessarily want commercial solar installations elsewhere beyond what eventually goes into this map.
Okay, so we have a couple of conversations in front of us. So this first discussion was on the criteria that was used and the beginnings of a presentation for town meetings, so the public understands the criteria that was in place. We're going to have the complete conversation about what goes forward to town meeting for the overlay, beginning in a little while in this meeting, or resuming in a little while in this meeting. Does anybody particularly have, and we did talk, and I appreciate that this is complicated, a little bit about criteria for future changes if the proposal does go through. So I think that process is important. The public's understanding of the way that we hope to pursue this is really important. Does anybody have more comments specifically on the criteria or thoughts on process going forward for the overlay district conversation?
Madam Chair, I just want to let you know that a member of the public has a comment. So when you're ready for that, I will.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, why don't we take the member of the public and then we're going to move on and we'll talk about it more with the public hearing, but let's take the member of the public.
All right, so Dana Hall is unmuted right now.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, Muriel. This is Dana Hall, 62 Teresa Road. I wanted to make a comment on the criteria slide in that under item 4, there was an item concerning, 2 items actually, one item concerning minimal deforestation and also proximity to residential neighborhoods. From my viewpoint, it seems as if I mean, that's kind of like motherhood and apple pie. They're nice words, but there's no specifics involved. And for creating such an overlay district, I think we need to be much more specific and have much more detailed criteria. And I can point out, for example, I did a little bit of research, and the town of Falmouth has an overlay district. And if you look at their overlay district, in their overlay district description, it breaks out exactly what the setbacks have to be from residential neighborhoods. It says exactly how much deforestation can occur.
Yep.
In the Falmouth district, it specifies that no more than 2 acres of forest can be taken down for any one particular installation. I would think rather than having a motherhood and apple pie statement, which is way too overly general and open to interpretation by both proponents and opponents of a particular parcel of land, we need to be much more specific. And I'll take the comments offline.
Yeah, so Dana, I want to thank you for that, the research that you did, and I appreciate that you forwarded some of the detail on what Falmouth did in particular. And I think that I would recommend that Zach look at that again next year. I thought it was helpful criteria, and that we certainly look at it again. Okay. So I think that we are able to move forward on the agenda. We never got Roy McDowell back.
No, but Todd joined. I don't know if he's still here. Looks like he may have dropped off as well.
All right. Would somebody remind me before the end of the meeting that we at least make a decision on what we're doing with the Form K signatures, unless people want to do it now? Okay, we'll wait and see if he, go ahead. Is that Frank?
Yeah, okay. I didn't know you could hear me. I just wanted to thank Gary and also Legacy North response on that question. But I think Gary's point is very valid, and maybe we should wait, or at least have more of a discussion before we vote on it.
Okay. Why don't we, we'll go ahead and wait until, at least until the end of the meeting, and make a formal decision then. If I wouldn't mind somebody helping me out, reminding me. The applicant for Buckland Street and Leonard Street has requested a continuation to the first meeting in May. What's the date of that, John?
It is May 11th.
All right, and the decision would be May 15th in that case?
Usually we
I mean,
like to say
May 18th?
Usually we like to say at least a week or
Yeah.
2 weeks.
My math was terrible. Right. I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearings for Buckland Street and Leonard Street for the stormwater management permit and the petition to construct a paper street to May 11th. And with the decision on, is it the stormwater management that's time limited, 7 days?
Yes.
With the decision for the stormwater management to be due May 18th.
So moved.
Second.
Amy, will you make a second?
Oh, sorry, Deb did it. Amy second.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go for Gary and Amy.
Oh, for everyone. Okay.
For the administrative stuff, if we
Sure.
don't mind. Okay, so is there any discussion at all? So all those in favor, roll call vote, please. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane Moran?
Jane Moran, yes, but Rob, did you have a question? I saw you hand up.
I just we've had my only comment is we've had this on our agenda for a year now, and this is a regular occurrence, and I am frustrated by him this being on our agenda, not being done, being pushed, and I'm frustrated when it is in attendance. He's unprepared. I'm very frustrated.
Rob, welcome to the planning board.
Mhm.
So I apologize that I missed you, Jane. I'm just gonna remind you on process that it needs to be me that that manages the meeting that way. Rob, I appreciate your comments. And we have all sort of made similar comments over time. In this case, I think it helps us in the current environment because it's very difficult to have this meeting.
Yep.
So anyway, I'll take your vote, Rob.
Rob, yes. Continued.
Deb, did I get you?
No, not yet. Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank?
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Madam Chair, if I may jump in.
Yes,
Just
please do.
two things. The first is if anyone wants to make a comment, I think it's most helpful to raise your hand on the Zoom feature, not on the video, because Muriel or I might not be able to see you, but we can see the raise hand feature, and then I can let the chair know. The second is Beth Cameron messaged me and said she had a comment. So if you want to take that, or a question, if you want to take that now, I can unmute her.
Sure.
Or you can tell me when. All right.
Sure.
Oh, Beth doesn't seem to be connected to audio. I will message her.
John, maybe she could just message the question to you.
Yeah, so I asked her to message me with the question. So if you want to continue, I can let you know when
Okay,
that comes up.
perfect. Thank you. With, I think that I would like to do the continued public hearing for the major project site plan review next. Is that amenable to the planning board? All right. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to do a little time check. We have 2 hours. I am going to necessarily get to everything. It's going to be clunky and we won't get through as much as we want to. But if everybody can try and be as purposeful and concise as possible, that will help us. Mr. Joseph needs to be unmuted. And whoever else he brought with him.
Okay.
Okay.
Chuck is unmuted.
Okay, Chuck, welcome. And if you can just introduce yourself to the public and then tell us who you have with you.
Sure. Chuck Joseph, 5 Benson Road, representing the developer and one of the developers on 2535 Main Street, Hopkins Village Center. And I have Dan Campbell with me, engineer for the project.
Hi, Dan. Somebody needs to unmute Dan.
Oh, Dan.
And then, okay.
Dan's unmuted.
Chuck, go ahead and catch us up. And thanks for your patience. When we saw each other, we thought we would see each other again soon.
Yeah, that was a bit ago. Yeah, the last time we met, we had introduced the project to the planning board. It was determined at that time that the planning board, I believe, and John, you can correct me on this, have jurisdiction over the entrance, exit, and parking lot portion of the project. We are in the process of working through the sale of the middle rectangle of the project to the town for the purposes of a parking lot, municipal parking lot. And we had gone through we've been through the zoning board of appeals, and we have their approval on that portion of the project that involves the condominiums, et cetera. So at that point, Madam Chairman, it was decided that we would come back in front of you since we did kind of a project overview with Dan and entertain any questions that the planning board has with regard to their portion of the project.
Dan, did you have anything to add at this time? I can't hear him. Dan, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. In the meantime, I'm going to ask John to just give us an update.
So we have not received any new information, but Beta has provided, I believe, a review letter. I'm just trying to look at the documents. So we are still working off of Beta's review letter. We have not received comments on that, as far as I know.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Oh, yes,
Yes, all
welcome,
right.
Dan.
Sorry about that. So we're working through all of the comments. We're almost on the drainage. We have modified landscaping. We have modified photometrics. We have made the majority of the changes to the site plan. We're just working through literally writing the letter, hopefully to get back to you sometime next week to make all of the final changes. Really not much physically changes with the look and the feel of the parking lot, and the comments and changes are going to be more paperwork than they are going to be design.
Okay. Do we have comments from Beta?
Yes, we did at the first hearing.
I'm sorry, Dan. I was asking John if Beta was here with us on the meeting and had comments for us. Hi, Phil.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So yeah, as Dan mentioned, there was discussion at the last meeting. It sounded like there was concurrence that many of the items could be addressed. As John mentioned, we have not seen evidence of that. So that's where we stand.
Okay. So any member of the board, do you have any questions or comments? I'm looking around, I don't see anybody.
Well, we're going to go through the outline, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I'm gonna find the outline. It's right here. Thought I had the outline. Page 35. Okay. So next on our outline is the detailed discussion with public comment, vehicular and pedestrian traffic flow, truck traffic flow, emergency vehicle access. Does any member of the board have any questions about that?
Wondering if we should put the plan on the screen.
It's not a terrible idea.
See it on my list.
Do that shortly.
Jane, I'm sorry, what did you say?
What number on this is the agenda item? I seem to have lost.
So this is number 4. What you may be doing, what I did at first was open the agenda for Monday night, which only has the zoning articles on it and Maspinock.
What I did is I brought the agenda from last time because I thought it was the same, but it.
On the last agenda, we had the solar special permit on as number 3, and so we skipped ahead. I noticed that as well.
So it's the same. It's the same agenda. I did take them out of order. Yeah.
So on the old agenda, it's on page 29, if that helps.
Oh, I have it on 24. How's that work?
Oh my gosh. Here we go.
So we were on number 6, detailed discussion. So vehicular
Yes.
traffic.
So
yeah.
for the new agenda, I believe I'm on the new one. It's page 35.
Okay.
Look at me go telling Amy where to find something online. I'm taking
Well, I
that
have
one
it on paper.
straight to church on Sunday. Actually,
Now we
from
know
home.
for sure the world is upside down.
All right, let's be nice. All right, so vehicular and pedestrian traffic flow, truck traffic flow, emergency vehicle access. Do we have anybody from the fire department? I think we were set on that, but I just want to make sure.
The Chief Slayman is here, or he was here. Let's see. He is.
And
Chief,
Chuck,
you
can
are
I just
muted.
ask you to confirm that that sprinkling the units was part of the zoning decision?
Yes.
Yes, that's what we had agreed to, along with Chief Slamman. which eased some of his concerns with regard to emergency vehicles.
Perfect. Not really our business, but we needed to know.
Yep.
Hi, Chief.
Hi, Muriel.
Just if we can get like a more detailed picture, please.
Chief, we were just talking about vehicular and pedestrian traffic flow and emergency vehicle access. Do you have
Yes.
any concerns, questions?
I think my comments for the last meeting and what Chuck just stated, the fact that they are sprinklered buildings, he'll be doing some work with swept path analysis and other parts of the building code that will relieve any of my concerns for access. So I think we're on a good path.
I can hear you at the station, Chief. I was wondering what that was.
Well, I'll shut her down.
We're all gonna know way more about somebody's business than we should.
Okay, the radio's off.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the members of the public on this? Do we see any, John?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, all right. So I'm comfortable checking that off. The intended uses, which is just the parking lot, is that correct, John?
Correct.
All right. Are there any issues, questions, or concerns about the intended uses? Any members of the public, John? You'll alert me if somebody raises their hand.
Yep, I don't see any yet.
All right, I feel like we can check off the intended use. I think we all understand what it's going to be used for and support that. Stormwater management, that would be the open items for beta, is that correct?
Correct.
So that's going to remain an open item until we see you again? Yes. Site lighting. Do we have any ongoing concerns with site lighting questions? I'm looking around.
I think the design review board covers the lighting as well, right? Amy, were they, or whoever's the representative?
It's been a long time, but I think we did review.
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't Historic also look at lighting, Amy?
Historical reviewed it a while ago now. I think they're supposed to go back to Historic for lighting. Is that right, Chuck?
Yeah, Historic wanted to see the final fixtures to make sure that they were lining up with what was going to be done with the downtown corridor project.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So there's no like, there's not a page in this presentation that shows the cross sections of the light poles or what the design's going to look like yet.
I think there was in the packet a photometric.
Mm-hmm.
There was in the packet, but we did make changes in accordance with betas. And we added additional light poles and we changed the height of the light poles to change the lighting levels slightly, which we discussed and showed at the last public hearing.
So will we see that updated plan the next time?
Absolutely.
All right, so we will leave site lighting open as well. Utilities, water and sewer use seems like a non-issue. We'll check that
Muriel,
out.
it's Dave. Muriel.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead,
I
Dave.
just had one quick question about the lighting. I know in the past we tried to talk about motion detected lighting. I wanted to ask the applicant if they considered that at all.
That's a great question.
So in this particular case, this is a public parking lot, and the purpose of it is for the public. So we are trying to do a night lighting scheme where it is partially lit at night because it is public in, public out. But it will be dimmed lighting per the schematic, but it will not be motion sensor per se. Because it's not a private lot. If it was just for a business, we could consider it, but this is public parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Questions on utilities or water sewer use? So we're going to cross that one off. Lighting is still open. Okay, the
All right, just
parking
a quick
lot.
question.
Yes.
Sorry, Muriel.
Dave.
Just just confirming that there's no telephone poles being added, everything's underground, right?
Correct.
Chuck?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Parking lot layout, dumpster location, snow storage, and snow removal. Is that going to be part of what we see updated?
That is primarily on here. There is no dumpster for the public parking lot itself.
Right, okay.
Snow storage is on here. It's pushed through straight through the entrance. And there's going to be snow storage for minimal storms, and then there will have to be some removal, which we do delineate on the plan.
Okay, so that the plan isn't going to change.
From a snow storage standpoint, it is not. From a layout standpoint, it's changing from a handicap parking space, which we will show in the modified plan. So we do have to change around the handicap parking space slightly in discussions with the town. Snow storage will not, and a dumpster will not be added.
Just remind us how many spots and how many handicapped accessible spots?
We're adding another handicap accessible spot at the request of the town, but Beta's comments had to do with size and orientation. So we're going to move the handicap around a little bit to make it a more standard orientation.
Okay. And will they both be van accessible or?
Two of them will end up being van accessible.
Okay.
But there will be three total.
Three total. Okay.
Madam Chair, Mary has raised her hand.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Yes.
Hi. I'm sorry if this is not the appropriate place to ask this question, but I was just wondering whether or not there's a bike rack or bike parking. Bicycle, not motorcycle.
There isn't designed right now.
Okay. It's just usually there's usually some place for it near a public parking. That's what it just occurred to me. Even off the lawn, off the concrete walkway in the center, just a little spot for bike parking.
Mary, on that line, if we design a bike rack, which is what I think you're talking about, it would have to be on the public land. It could not be on the private parcels.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
And through the chair, just to clear up, there is parking for bikes at the library, which is nearby.
Oh, good. Oh, good point. Very good point. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, Gary has also raised his hand.
Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, so a follow-up question and another question. So just out of curiosity, why would the bike rack have to be on public land and not be on this parcel, which is a public parking lot?
No, I'm saying it would have to be on that parking lot. In other words, there's private land that the two buildings in the front own.
Yes. Okay. And then my other question, I'm just curious if there's an option. I don't really, not crazy about the idea of having a parking lot design that requires snow to be trucked out. And I'm curious if there are any other options. For example, maybe there be several parking spots that are also designated for snow storage in the winter if that need arises, or if that's not an option, then how many parking spots would the design need to give up in order to provide sufficient snow storage on the lot itself?
I'll let Dan speak to that. However, I do want to just point out, Gary, that on any major storm in downtown, snow removal occurs on Main Street, up and down Main Street on what are currently the parallel parking spots as well. So it's not as if the town is not going to be moving snow from this area to another location for most of the roadway.
So, Madam Chair, may I respond to that?
Yeah,
I understand that, Chuck, but it's also very expensive to move snow. It's cheap to plow it, it's expensive to move. So I'm just trying to think about adding additional cost to the town's snow removal budget, which I'm not crazy about.
Right. Well, and I get that, Gary, but I'll let Dan speak to that.
Mr. Trudell, the reality of it is that the town could give up as many parking spaces in the winter as they wanted to. It's at that point when it gets turned over, it's a public parking lot. And if you wanted to plow the snow onto the parking spaces closest to the left-hand abutter, for instance, you could plow the first 4 spaces, 10 feet deep if you wanted to, and still have all that snow melt into the parking lot, go through the stormwater system into the drainage system, and still be treated the same way and everything else, and still utilize the remainder of the parking lot. What I was saying was, if you wanted to keep the entire parking lot, all the spaces open, then you're going to have to truck snow off. But it, I'm sure, will be a year-to-year decision as to if you are going to, how much you're going to, what storm you're going to truck snow off on any given year. In a smaller storm event, 2, 3, 4 inches, you won't have any problem storing the snow in the grassed areas that are on the site.
Gary, you all set?
Yep, thank you.
Jane?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up to Gary and Paul's comments. It's been my experience, if you store snow in big piles, you get big drainage problems and wastewater problems and stuff that flows back into the sewer system and drainage and all that. If we had an opportunity to remove snow, I think we would be in better shape.
So in this particular case, we've designed the back side of the site to run towards the front side of the site. So as long as the snow was stored in the grass areas that are part of the public parcel, for instance, or within the public parking lot, it's all going to run through the stormwater system and be treated, held, and discharged. So it's all going through that system regardless of if it's in a pile that's 20 feet tall or if it stays on the parking lot 1 inch deep. It all still will be treated.
Correct, but as opposed to, through the chair, as opposed to being removed, you could eliminate some of that drainage problem.
Certainly. I mean, if it's removed, but again, that's once it gets turned over, that's up to the town exactly how they handle it. I'm just saying, giving up 4 spaces in the winter if it's a really rough winter like a couple of years ago, certainly is a possibility.
Thank you.
John, can I ask you a question? Do you know if the town has contemplated the snow removal versus snow storage versus snow pushing question?
The town, as far as I know, has contemplated it. I don't know where it stands, and I don't know what if any decision has been made. But I do know that there has been discussion as to whether DPW basically serves the drives and the parking lot and removes it.
Okay, if I could ask you for the next time we meet to just try and get an update from Mr. Westerling, that would be helpful. Okay, so we'll leave the layout, because it has the snow storage and snow removal on it, open. Any comments or questions from the public at all? John, you'll alert me each time, right? Okay. 6.7 is noise. Does anybody get any questions or comments or concerns about noise? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and cross that one off. Crosswalk location and sidewalks. Do we have to contemplate that in this case where it's the rectangular lot we're considering, not the entranceways?
Is that directed to me?
Sure.
So yes, because it's the flow of pedestrian traffic to and from the site, but there are no crosswalks directly related to the parking lot, as I'm aware. So yes or no, it's up to the board to make that determination.
Through the chair.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Amy first.
Oh, I was going to say that I believe there is a sidewalk from the parking lot between the 2 historic buildings that meets with the Main Street sidewalk. I don't know if that's why we wanted to discuss it.
Say that again. It's between the 2 buildings?
Between the 2 historic buildings, there's a pedestrian sidewalk that goes to the main sidewalk. So you can get from the parking lot and then go to the library or wherever you're going.
Okay. And Dave?
I was just gonna make a comment that I think we're probably covered with the downtown corridor project.
Mary?
Yeah, I think that I agree that we're probably covered with the downtown corridor project. I want to point out that there's no doubt going to be some people coming from a parking lot and walking down the vehicle entrance and exit routes. I'm using my cursor to show it, but obviously I realize you guys can't see that. And I do not think that we need to provide sidewalks along those. I just want to be clear that there's definitely going to be people walking down those. I don't think there's going to be such high volume of traffic that it's going to be a safety issue, but it's going to happen. You know, people walk where they want to walk. They don't always walk in the designated area.
Okay. Yes. And I'm not sure how we, I'm not sure how we solve that.
I don't think we can.
don't either.
And I don't think we can lose the space that's necessary for a sidewalk on each of those. I think it would take up too much space in this very limited area. So
I see Chuck nodding his head in agreement.
That's true. We've looked at all those possibilities, and we felt the central walkway was the best suited because anybody in any part of the parking lot can access that, and that will have sidewalk lights on it in the evening too.
yeah, and I think that's the best solution.
Jane, I saw your hand.
Yeah, after this discussion is through, could we jump back to noise? Because I tried to get my hand up, but.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Crosswalk location and sidewalks. Does anybody have any open issues, or are we satisfied with the plan as it's in front of us? Okay, I'm gonna cross that one off. Jane, go ahead back to noise.
Sure. This question through the chair would be for Chuck or Paul. And I kind of glossed over the conversation about dumpsters on the site and where they would be stored. But that's not my concern. My concern with the noise is if there are dumpsters on the site, which I can't imagine that there won't be.
No, we don't have dumpsters on the site. It's right. It's the dumpsters are associated with the residential dwelling, the building.
Right. And so that was my concern, was if there could be some sort of time limit, like not coming in at 4 a.m, maybe coming in at 7 or 8.
So to be honest, I think that doesn't fall under, I appreciate where you're going with this. I don't think it falls under our purview, but I presume the town has, Chuck, can you answer? Does the town have guidelines on that?
Yeah, in the the 9 condos that are going to be there, they would be regular, garbage cans that we have, where the condo association would hire a vendor to come in and empty those, just as you would like at Davenport Village or any of the others.
Sure.
Speaking of, are you good, Jane?
Yeah, it would just be a suggestion that maybe they come during regular business hours and rather waking people up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, presumably the residents there would want the same thing. So.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm coming from. But
yeah, I know. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just a
so appreciating that we are going to find it difficult to be efficient, we do need to wrap up the discussion here so we can get to the discussion of other things. Do the members of the planning board want to take a quick look through the rest of the items on the outline, just to highlight any they might have specific concerns about, if they know?
Can John pop that up for a minute, Mariel?
John, are you able to put it up? I apologize.
But what?
I can't actually see John's screen and the meeting. So.
What would
The
you like me to put
outline,
up?
the outline, John.
Let me open it. Sorry, I've got a lot of windows. My computer's going pretty slow.
Yeah. I have a spirited debate going on at the dinner table behind my computer, which is kind of awesome and kind of challenging at the same time.
It might not be worth it, John, if you can't find it. I'm not concerned.
Let me read the items, Dave. Just so people know. So landscaping is still open, signage. Impacts on schools, municipal services, value of the neighboring residential properties, wildlife and wildlife corridors. Impacts is one. Town department, board, committee comments not covered anywhere else. Historic resources, screening, pollinator friendly. Am I in the right outline? Pollinator friendly plantings, additional or new comments,
I think that
municipal
may be,
parking design.
Might be Lumbers,
Yeah,
Franklin
Right.
Road.
I apologize if
no,
that's
no,
true.
you're correct. No, that is
Okay.
2535.
Okay, I thought so, gosh. The purchase process, and I think that was unique to this. We just needed to understand what the town was doing, not that we can control it, but we just need to understand it. The Main Street corridor coordination, the maintenance of the municipal parking hours, easements for access, public parking in a residential area, electrical vehicle parking, and solar opportunities. If anybody has particular interest in any of those areas, I see Deb has raised her hand, so I'll start with Deb.
Yeah, talking about some of the definitions that really aren't impacted by this project. Do you think we should clean it up a little bit?
Say it again.
Should we clean up some of these items that aren't really applicable to this project?
Well, hopefully we'll go through them quickly, but we're going to have to continue this in just a couple of minutes so we get to other things. But we'll do it quickly when we get to it. But if there are areas of concern that you want to make sure the developer knows about, so they're prepared the next time, that would be helpful.
Chair Gary has raised his hand.
Gary.
Just in particular, the electrical vehicle parking seems like a great place to put a charging station.
I agree. Mary, did you have a comment? That was Frank.
The electrical vehicle we did discuss last time, and it's really a matter of whether or not we can wire it for that. But yeah.
Okay. Any other hotspots anybody can predict? Deb.
I would go with 6.10 signage to clearly indicate hours of operation, hours of access to that parking lot.
And I imagine traffic flow, right?
Traffic flow arrows, yep. There's going to be quite a few triggers there as well.
Okay.
I'll say the signage has to be reviewed by Historic District too.
Okay, yep. All right, when is the next, when's the next open meeting that isn't next Monday?
May 11th.
May 11th. Chuck, is May 11th good for you to clean up whatever's open?
Yeah, we'll work with that date. I'm assuming you have nothing before that.
No, it's just Monday night coming up next.
May 11th it is then. And I just so I can understand, on the item we have reviewed, we want to close out stormwater management, lighting, and there's specific interest in signage. I think there's going to, as a developer, will be looking for some direction from the board too as to what they want to see in terms of signage. And then we should be able to resolve that. We do have one way in and one way out, so it does simplify things a significant amount.
Great. The other thing that we had opened that hopefully we just get some input from the DPW on their plans for snow.
Yes.
So we have some coordination there.
Yeah.
Okay. I will entertain a motion, Gary, to continue this public hearing to May 11th.
Gary Trindle, so moved.
Amy Ritterbush, second.
Thank you. Is there, the decision is after the close of the public hearing. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Quick
Although,
discussion.
Dave?
This is Dave. Sorry, quick discussion. Since we are remote, is it possible for John Westerling just to pop in for a quick note and give us an update personally on the snow removal, or just a suggestion?
He's certainly welcome if he will. If he's not available, at least if he could just give us some information, that would be helpful. Okay. Again, it's a roll call vote. All those in favor, Muriel Kramer says aye. Jane?
Aye. Jane Moran, aye.
Deb?
Deborah Feinberg, aye.
Rob?
Rob Benson, aye.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Amy?
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank?
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Okay, thanks for your patience. We'll see you on the 11th.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. All right. John, the new public hearing for the common driveway, do we have those folks here?
So let me look. Dave Marcodon had joined and left, so he is on. I'm unmuting him now. Dave, you are unmuted.
Hi, Dave.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi, if you could introduce yourself for members of the public and introduce the project, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, is Ken Masters there as well?
I
John?
have not seen him sign on unless he signed on with phone number or a different name.
An alias.
You're on your own, Dave. You can handle it.
Okay. My name is Dave Marquardt, representing Prime Properties. The board may remember that back in December, Prime Properties came forward with an A&R plan in the same area of property, lots 10, 11, 14, 12, and 13. Essentially, there we go. Back in December, they eliminated one lot called Lot 14. So the new plan back in 19 added essentially Lot 14 to 12. So we're here this evening to talk about 12 and 13. 12 is about 90 acres and 90,000 square feet. And lot 13 is 90,000 square feet. Each lot has adequate frontage. You can kind of see on the bottom portion of that highlighted limits of 12 and 13, we have a wetland down by Stony Brook Road, an isolated wetland. And then kind of on the common line between 12 and 13, we have a vegetated wetland. So way back in the 80s, with the original subdivision on the concept plan, we had two common driveways. We had an additional piece of property to the northeast of lot 13. So we're proposing today a common driveway that's 16 feet wide, that's pavement. It's about 400 feet long. It's going to be private. As you can see, it starts at lot 12 down by Stony Brook Road and then traverses and sort of running parallel along the wetland. The property itself is moderately wooded. We've done a lot of our testing. It's sort of thinned at the top of the north end of both lots 12 and 13. The wetlands have been agreed to in principle by the Conservation Commission. We have done testing with the Board of Health. We have approved septic 12 and 13. We've gone to Conservation with 3 notices of intent. One for 12 for the house and development, same for 13, and one for the common driveway. All 3 have been approved by Conservation and the orders have been signed electronically. We haven't received them yet, but they are signed. Some months ago, I met with the fire chief and we talked in principle after some discussions with the Board of Health originally and Conservation originally. It was spoken to the chief and the chief had asked us to put a small turnout about 150 feet in or so along the right-hand side for sort of parking and passing of emergency vehicles. So we've accommodated that. It's kind of a brief, well, I guess the driveway is proposed to be a bank driveway, meaning that as you drive in, the left side is higher than the right side. So that the topography sits on the property as it sits now on the property. If you will, the top left-hand corner of lot 12 is the high point, and then you can kind of imagine that it slopes down towards the wetland. So we're proposing sheet flow across the roadway in all directions to the wetland, in all locations to the wetland. The roadway is a gentle, we think it's a gentle roadway. It's starts off at 4.5%. Through the middle of the roadway is 2%. And at the end of the driveway, it's 4%. So the lots have been approved by conservation. Testing's been approved and Board of Health's been approved. It's kind of a small little overview.
Okay, thank you. John, if I could ask you to take us through your regulatory review.
So I went through the requirements in the memo for those of you who have it. There were two questions that I had. One of them was about the agreement, the driveway agreement, which is required. They provided it, so that's great. It does not appear to address the minimum 20-foot width. So as long as the applicant can confirm that that is included, I think that should satisfy that. The other piece is the turnout has a width of, as I can tell, 12 feet. The required width is
16.
I'm sorry.
18.
18 is required. It looks like it shows 12. It does meet the 40-foot length of the turnout, so that's not a concern. It's just the width.
So you're asking us to widen out the turnout itself from 12 to 18?
Yes.
Okay.
It's required to be 18 as part of the special permit requirements.
Got it. Okay.
Those were my only comments. Otherwise, it seemed to, or it appeared to meet the requirements elsewhere.
All right. So just for members of the public and the board, the approval criteria is that the common driveway will provide safe and reasonable access for fire, police, and emergency vehicles. The common driveway meets the purpose and requirements of this section, and the common driveway will minimize environmental impacts. And finally, the common driveway will not serve more than 2 single-family dwellings. Let's see. Additionally, the planning board may approve the special permit with conditions, which may include but shall not be limited to a performance bond secured by deposit of money or negotiable securities is posted with the town to guarantee proper construction and construction standards for the common driveway. So the public hearing outline does start on page 40. Did we, a consultant review?
Would you like me to talk about that?
I got Phil.
Yes, just a couple concerns that we have. If you look at the plans on page 3, the typical section. The 3. Keep going down. It's a detail sheet. All right, see the typical section up the top there? So according to the There's supposed to be a 7-foot shoulder on the downstream side, fairly consistent with the slope of the road, driveway. So the grading plan does not reflect that, and it's a little tight relative to grading. So I just want to make sure that that's actually going to be provided, or if that's going to change. And then the second thing is, if you look at the plans for the driveway and the turning radius, turning. So I don't know if John, if you can find the turning radius is at the driveway there. Yeah, right there on the bottom of that sheet. So it doesn't continue the radius all the way through the turn. The one on the right especially stops. So we want to see that continued through to make sure that that actually works in the street. And then there's a couple minor other things. Let me see.
Madam Chair, while Phil is looking, I just wanted to
Yeah.
call attention to Frank has raised his hand.
Thank you so much. So how about this? While Phil is looking, the next typical part of the process is that planning board members and or the public add to the detailed discussion items. So Frank, I'll go ahead and call on you.
This is more as a response to what they're talking about. I walked by there plenty of times. I'm not exactly sure why they need a shared driveway at this location, because I know they're going to need another one further north for the next project next to this, the next homes next to this. So is it because the houses are planned to be bigger, or they need to share the space, or how are the lots going to be filled? It seems to me that some of the houses are bigger than what we saw when they were planning this. And I'm just a little concerned that they're overbuilding and taking a little bit more of an opportunity to build larger houses, and maybe they should just build more new houses here, smaller, so that they can have their own individual driveways.
So
go ahead, Phil.
So yeah, no, I think I'm done. There's a few other minor things, but I think those can be worked out on the side.
Okay.
So those are the two major things: just the grading of the road and consistent with the section, making sure there's no runoff running out into the street, and then making sure those the vehicles can actually get in, and especially the fire truck that the town uses. So.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so Frank, I still have your comment in my head. I'm gonna open it up for the members of the planning board to add to the agenda. I'm not sure. I mean, I think you can ask the question when we're talking to the applicant about
Sure.
their plans next door, but I'm not sure we can talk about that in terms of what we decide on this.
I'm not exactly clear what the reason is why they're asking to do this when there's plenty of land there. That's all.
With process question, interruption, Muriel, can John
Yeah.
pop up the list, the detailed list, so we can look at it while discussing? I'm having trouble finding my documents.
Yeah, no worries. Are you able to pull that up, John?
Thank you, guys.
Just scanning down to it right now.
Okay. Page 40. Okay. If any member of the planning board have anything to add to the agenda? Is there any member of the public? Oh, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Can't hear you, Rob.
Sorry about that. I have a mute on my mic on my headset here.
Nice.
So this criteria lays out everything that needs to be in place to provide approval.
Yep.
But is there any grounds, like even if all of this is met, there is, I think approval is discretionary, is my understanding. There's nothing that, it's not required to approve this, even if all these conditions are met, is my understanding. Am I incorrect?
Oh, John, I'm going to let you take that process question.
So not to get too philosophical with zoning, because no one wants to do that, but the way that planners view it is the zoning bylaw was something that was drafted by the townspeople, especially in New England where they have town meeting. So everything was agreed upon by the town, theoretically, that if an application for a common driveway meets this criteria, they are, I don't want to say due for approval, but they are therefore meeting the criteria that the town has established and should therefore then be granted the approval. That doesn't mean that the board, if there's something that they believe prohibits this approval from happening, but generally, if you want to look at what zoning is intended for, it's if it meets this criteria, it should be approved.
Well, yeah, the fundamental issue here is this driveway cuts these two lots to stated at 90,000 square foot lots each to significantly smaller because the driveway fundamentally separates the land. It's that invisible barrier.
So through the chair, and I may be wrong about this, but if I read the plans correctly, the wetlands go across the front of this lot, prohibiting access with a driveway. They would have to have a wetland crossing. Dave, you might be able to, Dave Markadon, you might be able to clear that up.
Sure. Yep. Back on page 2, you'll see the wetlands. Like I said in the beginning, we have 2 wetlands series. There's an isolated at the front, and there's a vegetated on the front portion of lot 13. This common driveway is not a new concept to the subdivision. The subdivision was approved with 2 individual common driveways. We've eliminated 1 common driveway, and this is the one we're proposing. We've reduced the number of lots over the number of years. So the driveway that's in front of you now was shown by easement back when the plan was endorsed back in 2004. It's also mentioned in the certificate of planning board action, I think on page 3, item number 3, page 4, item number 3, reserving the right for these common driveways. So this common driveway was always in the mix, always on the plan, always anticipated to service these 2 lots. This is nothing new to this development.
But if I may, it's more water
Hold
runoff.
on 1 second, Frank.
Sure.
Go ahead.
It's more water runoff in that area. It's not as opposed to being a wetland in front of these properties. Because in the back, there's to give it context, there's the back of these properties. There's a rock-filled runoff area so that all the water doesn't go to one property or another. It kind of channels it back to where there is a manhole cover to take the water in and bring it to the street level so that these 2 properties can be built on. Now in front, that's where the water runoff from that area goes. So it's kind of we're putting the water where it does the most good so you can build the homes, but now you're saying, well, we need to put the driveway, have 1 shared driveway. And I know you're saying that you had this before, but that's for the next property over where you had some additional properties and the developer decided, well, we're going to reduce these because we really can't fit 3 or 4 houses in there. We can fit 2 more houses in there with another shared driveway. So that's the one I think that I've always known about. And what you're saying now for these 2 properties, this is a new shared driveway as far as I can remember. And I've been on talking about this project for a long time. So my only concern is why not have two separate driveways at these two properties. And my concern is that there might be, because the houses are be too big.
So I'm happy to let you respond to that, but right now, what we're going to be talking about for the next couple of minutes, and we're going to have to move on, is additions to the detailed discussion items from either the members of the board or the public. Does any member of the board have something to add to the agenda, to the outline?
Yeah, I'd like to add a consideration for the type of de-icing material that is used on the driveway. Because it is in a sensitive area and it's going into wetlands, can we add that to snow removal, road.
Yep. Anybody else on the planning board have anything to add to the discussion items?
So Muriel, it's Dave.
Hi, Dave. Go ahead.
Do you think it would be prudent to just quickly go through and strike out the ones that don't apply?
We can do that. What are your suggestions?
I think the utilities 5.5 is not applicable.
Yep.
And noise 5.7, 5.8 crosswalks, 5.9 building and design, 5.2 intended uses, and we know what that is, right? These are just suggestions.
Yeah. Is anybody everybody comfortable with that idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Thanks, Dave. Great suggestion. I appreciate that.
I don't know if John got all those, did he, or?
Did Stephanie? Yeah.
I crossed off utilities, noise, crosswalk location, building design, and signage. Did you say signage?
Intended.
Yeah, can you just scroll down to the second page, John? Five 5.11 impact on schools. I don't think that's appropriate. What do people feel about 5.12?
I think you should leave that in
I
case
think we
something
need to
comes
leave
up.
that.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Is there any member of the public that's raised their hand, John?
Check.
No.
No.
Okay, Dave, I apologize because this is a
understood.
slow process. We have to continue because I need to get to some other people tonight.
Yep.
Are you able to come back on the 11th of May?
Sure.
All right, I will entertain a motion, Gary, to continue this to May 11th.
So moved.
Oh, second, Amy Rodenbush.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor by roll call, Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Amy?
Amy Rodenbush, yes.
Frank?
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. It is the solar public hearing for the solar next.
Good evening, Pedro from Seaboard Solar.
Hi, Pedro.
Hi, can you guys please also unmute Adam Costa and Nick Fasandola? They will be starting the presentation for my project.
Yes, they are now live.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm just finding my spot in my materials.
Good evening, Madam Chair. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. You tell me when you're ready.
I am ready. Thank you.
So I'm Adam Costa. I'm with the firm of Mead, Tellerman and Costa. Thank you for adding us to the agenda tonight, and thank you for accommodating us. I know not all boards are meeting with see these days, given the present circumstances. So we appreciate you conducting this meeting, even though the circumstances aren't what we'd like them to be. We were last before you quite a while ago, back in late January, so it's been almost 3 months. We sought a continuance of or from your meeting in March. We appreciate you granting that. We're still continuing work to try and update our plans and continue communications with stakeholders and other relevant parties so that we could come to you with something meaningful at the next session of the public hearing. So we appreciate that. As you know, a site visit did occur since the last meeting, last session of the public hearing on January 27th. So what I'd like to accomplish tonight, and I know the hour is late and that you'd like us to be as efficient as we can be. So what I'd like to do is just touch upon very briefly what we've attempted to accomplish over the past few months. I won't take more than a couple of minutes to do that. And then relatively quickly, I'm going to yield the floor to Nick Fasandola, who can speak specifically to the plans that you have before you and address the various updates that have been made since the January meeting.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Since January, we've done a few things. As I've alluded to, we've made a variety of modifications to the site plan. We've reduced the overall size of the project somewhat. We've attempted to incorporate into the plans the results of soil testing that's been done, wetlands and habitat surveys that have since been completed. We had received some initial comments from planning board members back in January, not much because the preliminary meeting was really to identify issues that would be discussed through the course of the public hearing, but we did get some feedback, and so we took the opportunity to work some resolution of those issues into the plans as well. The planning board's peer review engineer has reviewed the project and provided initial comments to which we responded. We also have a more updated plan, correspondence dated April 17th that addressed many of those same issues. And I was happy to see, as I'm sure the board will be, that many of the issues that had been originally addressed have now been marked by your peer review consultant as either issues dismissed or issues resolved. So we've made some real progress in that regard. We've addressed comments that we've received from the Conservation Commission because we have an ongoing proceeding before the Conservation Commission that resulted in some modifications of the plan as well. Now, we've also had meetings, as I had alluded to, also with stakeholders, so with HALT, and continued our communications with HALT relative to open space areas of the project and trail preservation and landscape design, all of which we had talked about a bit at the January 27th meeting. And certainly either Nick or Pedro will speak to what we've done, significant revisions we've made to address trail preservation, which I know was an issue of some importance to at least a couple of board members that spoke about it at the last meeting. Fire chief, and address certain comments that we received from fire chief. And then finally, we met with a Native American tribe because there was some concern about historical monumentation that was on the site and how that might be affected by our project. And we've continued those communications. And again, after Nick speaks to plan changes, I think Pedro might have a quick word or two about those dealings and what he's learned and what effect it does or doesn't have on the project. So that's all that we've attempted to accomplish in 3 long months. And now I'm going to yield the floor, if I could, to Nick for him to provide some further detail on those plan changes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So for the record, Nick Fasandola, Level Design Group, civil engineer for the project. John, is it possible for me to share my screen so I can cursor around on the PDFs I had sent over to you?
I can put the PDFs on the screen. I don't know if I can have you share. Let me try. There you go.
Is that there? Okay, so to echo on Adam's comments, we've made some substantial revisions to the proposed plan here. One major revision, we've reduced the size and scope of the array significantly. The original design of the array, where the limits of the fence are shown in this red line throughout the perimeter of the plan. The original array area covered approximately 28 acres. The revised plan covers approximately 23 acres. So it's a reduction of 5 acres of solar array area. These modifications were done primarily to preserve the existing trail network, which has been added to the revised plan. As you can see here, this is the existing trail that runs along the westerly border of the project and connects to the existing trail maintained by HALT, which is located in the rear of the property. We are maintaining this rear line of the trail through here. And we're also maintaining the existing trail network. We're going to be relocating a small section of trail through this area. So there's a connection between this existing trail and this intersection right through here. Other changes and modifications that have been made, Conservation Commission requested that we delineate the vegetative wetland that borders this pond. So we've gone out and delineated this new wetland area. We've also identified a potential vernal pool, which is located in this area down here. This is an existing isolated wetland, but when we had our wetland scientists go out to do their habitat evaluation, it was a peak season to be evaluating vernal pools, and they made the observations that this area is likely a vernal pool. It's not a certified vernal pool, but we're treating it as such with regards to permitting with the Conservation Commission. We've also done extensive soil testing throughout the site and had a geotechnical report prepared that's been submitted with the revised documentation. With regards to stormwater management, we've eliminated a few, 2 small basins. There was a small basin proposed in this area of the property. And there was an additional smaller detention basin located up in this area. So I don't know where the red lines are coming from, if that's on my end or.
Those arrows.
Okay, those are arrows. All right. I'm kind of zooming in and out to kind of get around the property so you guys can have a proper view on it. Additional changes to the property or to the project, we've done some maintenance and modifications of grading and drainage flow patterns. We've added a berm, small, it's about 2 to 3 feet high along this end. That will keep stormwater from the northern portion of the site running over the array and into the system. That will prevent erosion of the roadway and prevent unnecessary water from entering our infiltration basin. I'm going to swap over to a separate plan here. So this is a open space plan we prepared that shows the trail access and open space. So there's 2 colors of green down here. This is the open space provided for the existing Liberty Mutual property. This area isn't included in our application, but we are providing the required open space area as required by the zoning for the professional office district for this property. And that's included in this area right through here. And then we move on to our property where we'll be providing approximately 45.5 acres of open space. That includes the trail that runs down the gas easement. That's going to be left in its natural state. And we're including all this area and all these existing trails. We have one section, as I detailed earlier, trail to be relocated up through here. And this plan also shows the 12 acres of open space which abut the project as part of the Fawn Ridge Road subdivision. So in this area, there's going to be a significant amount of dedicated open space provided by the applicant, and there's and to be added on to the existing open space. I'll let Pedro discuss his conversations with Haltz and where they are with working on an agreement to convey this open space in the future. We've also prepared a site landscaping plan, which addresses some of the concerns about ground cover within the proposed solar array area. We've added seeding notes that will include a pollinator seed mix, going with a seed mix that is a pollinator friendly seed mix, but is also going to be usable in in shaded areas, so which should work well within the solar array area. We also are proposing screening plantings along the existing trail network to mitigate the impacts of the visual impacts of the array from the trails that are going to be abutting the array. So we have plantings all through here, mostly evergreen screening plantings down through here. We also have plantings along this whole section as shown, and we're proposing plantings on either side of the right-of-way, the gas easement area in that trail. Plantings in that area are a little bit thinner because it's a tight area up against the trail and easement, but we're essentially planting 2 rows of screening plantings around the perimeter of the project. We've also increased our buffer distance to existing residential neighbors significantly with this. We've added about 100 feet of additional buffer area from the previously submitted plan in this area, and on the side we added some additional buffering through here. So we're maintaining approximately 100-foot buffer through this area right here. But we dipped down to 75 feet for clearing in this area just to get our detention basin outlet to a proper elevation. But we're about 75 in this area and almost 100 feet throughout the remaining area through here. This is our truck turning plan based on comments we received from the fire department. We've reduced the driveway width from 20 to 16 feet, just about throughout the entire area of the array. We do maintain a 20-foot width in some areas where we're making tight turns, like up in this area up through here, in this area through here, and this area through here. But the remainder of the driveway has been reduced to 16 feet, and this is a turning plan for a SU 30 size vehicle. Is what the chief asked me to run a turning analysis on for the site. We've also removed or are removing the existing paved area. That's the former test track. There were some conversations about that at the previous meeting and the site walk. So that paved area is approximately 120,000 square feet. We're removing 115,000 square feet of that impervious cover. The only area it's going to be remaining as impervious is this area right here, where we have our major electrical equipment, which needs to be pad mounted. The rest of the site will be, we'll have the pavement removed up in this area, and that area will be loamed and seeded with the pollinator mix within the interior of the array. That generally covers most of the site changes. As Attorney Costa noted, we responded to the original peer review comments, and we've received their response to our comments. We have about 5 or 6 outstanding issues, a few things that need to be buttoned up, but we don't see any major issues with regards to satisfying the review comments. One last item I'd like to mention. All the proposed electrical connections for the array are proposed to be underground. We do have one section where we're requesting approval to have 2 utility poles and an above ground feed to cross the existing gas easement. We're currently working with Eversource on how they'd like to see this area crossed. We're aware that a previous solar project, which was permitted by the board, had the same easement running through their property, and this is how they handled the crossing. So, if we can come up with something that's going to keep the electrical connection underground or on the surface, we would prefer to go with that. But worst case scenario, we would have 2 utility poles and approximately 80 feet of above ground cable running between those poles. So essentially all the utilities would be coming down through here, down the driveway, come out of the ground at a utility pole, cross, and then they'll go back underground and make their way to this main equipment pad area. We are then coming underground down the edge of the existing paved driveway, and there's going to be an interconnection point where we'll tie into the existing 3-phase power utility poles at the intersection of Franklin Road. So that essentially sums up the majority of the changes that were made. I'll yield the floor to Pedro to talk about his additional correspondence with HALT and the local tribes.
Thank you, Nick. Nick, can you please show the landscaping plan, please? Okay, so as you guys probably know, we have been communicating with HALT since the very beginning of this project. It is our intention to donate the entire open space of our property so the public can have legal access to the trails, as well as HALT can provide continuous and proper maintenance to the trails as well. So that's what is depicted on this plan. In regards to the Native American tribes, we have contacted the 2 Native American tribes that might have some relation to the stone ceremonial locations in our property. We walked the site with one of them this week. Their initial review is that they found very few stone ceremonial locations, actually 2 or 3, and all of them are outside the disturbed area. That being said, we are going to give them permission to continue to access our property and survey any location that they have found, because we're going to be working together with both of them on the preservation of any foundation that there might be inside our project. So those are the 2 comments that I wanted to touch.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to, I really apologize for this. I just want to be mindful of the time. So I want to make sure that the planning board gets a chance to react to this. I'm guessing that there are members of the public that are here to speak to this as well. And I'm going to try and do the same thing to just ask members of the planning board to highlight areas of specific special focus and interest, so that when we continue, you, if at all possible, you have some indication tonight of where members are particularly interested or have concerns or more complicated questions. So, John, can you tell me, do you see members of the public interested in this?
Nobody has raised their hand using the raise hand function. Oh, Maury Gasser just raised his hand, and Jim Haskins just raised his hand.
Okay. It is, it's challenging to not be able to see everybody. Okay. So let me ask the members of the planning board in particular to have, if you have any questions or comments about the revisions or what we've heard tonight, and then we'll go from there. Jane.
Two quick things. First of all, I want to thank Nick and Adam for considering all of the connectivity for the trails. And I was wondering if you had able to identify the connecting route to Legacy Farms, because I know there was a trail there. Number two, I was wondering about the fence, and I apologize if I missed this, but are you planning on leaving a 6-inch small animal friendly access so that they can get into the property on the bottom of the fence?
Through the chair, may I respond?
Nick, yes.
Okay. So the revised plans do include the 6-inch wildlife gap on the fence detail, so we'll be providing that.
Thank you.
With regards to a specific trail which connects to a legacy farm, we weren't able to find any record of the trail, and based on the site walks I've done, I haven't been able to find a connecting trail. Pedro's walked the site more than me, so I'll let him speak to that and see if he has identified a trail which connects to Legacy Farms.
Yeah, if you could, I know we have marked in our plan pretty much all the trails that we know about and the trails that were shared to us from HALT. If we're missing anything, please let me know. But I know 2 of those trails continue onto Legacy Farms property. So I just don't know which one you're referring to.
Yeah, they do, and that's it was closer. It's not up by Hall property. It was closer down by the gas pipeline.
Oh yeah, that one was reserved too.
And it would be nice if we, could identify that and
yeah, I know.
So let me just say this, Jane. I think we're all interested in the trails. That is a specific item on the agenda, and we will definitely talk about it.
Okay, sure.
Perfect. I appreciate it though, Jane. I might as well start out too. I have a specific concern from the site walk and the trails, and I'm going to first say how much I appreciate that you have already done to accommodate trails and to work with the trails committees and so forth. But we have experienced some real challenges with appropriately screening from residential, neighborhoods next door. So that's one thing. But one of the questions that was asked on the site walk that resonates with me a lot is the appropriateness of a trail, as we have so carefully plotted them through open space areas and so forth, to be right next to an industrial commercial use, and how we appropriately screen to maintain the feel and the use of a trail for how it was intended to be used. So I just want to tell you that I want to be clear that is something that is in the front of my mind as we think about this piece of property and putting in a solar use around existing trails. And I want to make sure I tell you how much I appreciate the fact that so much work has gone into it to start with, but it's a difficult concern and balance for me in my head. Any other members of the planning board want to react specifically to what we heard tonight, or have issues we want to make sure we highlight to speak about going forward? Frank, your hand.
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate that they trimmed back the project to meet the people's enjoyment of the property, and they're willing to share that. And I do appreciate their working with HALT. I just think the project might be a little bit too big still, but I'm glad that we're at least moving in the right direction.
Right. So in the interest of time, I want to go to any member of the public who has waited to speak
So Maury Gasser has raised his hand, and Jim Haskins has raised his hand.
All right, go ahead, Maury, when you're unmuted.
All right, Maury is unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. This is Maury Gasser, 28 South Mill Street. I'm also president of HALT. And I want to echo Muriel's appreciation for the fact that some effort was made to mitigate the impact on our trails. The trails still aren't going to be the same. There's no doubt about that. I don't see anything other than a drastic reduction to change that. But we do appreciate what was done. What I want to talk about, I actually got 5 points, and I'll try to go through them quick. Regarding the plantings, the screenings, and the moving of the one trail, and the giving away of the open space. How do we get a guarantee that that's actually going to happen? Number one, what's the time frame that's going to happen? What about maintenance of the trees? Let's say deers eat all the arborvitae, something like that. Is that going to be maintained? And finally, is there any enforcement mechanism to make sure all this happens? That's number 4. Number 5 is, are we getting continued public access to all those trails throughout the project from now until whenever it's given away?
Okay. So Maury, let me just clarify. There is a very detailed public hearing outline. Trails is on it, as well as screening, and we added screening for the trails. Additionally, the open space, I lost it, but it's here.
Stop now.
I don't know who's playing with their.
I think Frank is showing up as being highlighted.
So those are all on the outline, and maybe, and it's not a very efficient process for people who want to follow this, but that is the process that we have. It's at least standardized. So we will walk through all those items as we go forward.
Okay, you mean in future hearings?
Yes.
Okay.
I love your background, by the way. That's my next level.
This is HALT property.
Nice. All right. So please do join us. Please continue to make comments, and we will talk about all of those things as we go through the outline.
Okay. Thank you.
And who else?
Jim Haskins, I will unmute him now.
Oh, great.
Jim Haskins.
Yeah.
26 Chamberlain.
Hi, Jim.
I have a question on which tribe walked the property last week, because I've been in communication with the only tribal preservation officer that's working right now because of the virus shutdown.
Can I answer that question?
Yes, please.
So I spoke with Bettina from the Narragansett Indian tribe over the phone, and I spoke to the Wampanoag tribe of Gayhead, and the tribe that worked the property on Wednesday. Give me 1 second, don't want to misspell the name. Was was Cora from the Narragansett tribe.
Cora from the Narragansett tribe?
Yep, she walked the property with me on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m.
Okay, because I know the Narragansett has been locked down also, so I'll make some phone calls in the morning because I know there's a lot more there that's in the array area.
Yeah, no, I spoke that with her, and that's why she's going to continue to visit the property with our permission. Because,
so she hasn't walked the complete property. She's
Hey, Jim,
walked a small section.
Jim, I'm just going to remind you that you have to kind of go through the formality of going through me. I don't actually see you. Are you just here by audio?
No, I'm on.
Sorry, but just take a beat so aren't back and forth too dramatically, okay? So one of the things that I'm interested in hearing from you tonight is a process that makes sense to you for reviewing the Native American cultural historical sites.
Well, as we did with the last project, requested a ceremonial site survey where the actual survey is done by CSL survey for the ceremonial sites with the tribes.
Yeah. Understanding that is probably super challenging now. Is there a way forward where people can do that safely?
And that's the problem because of the virus situation. I mean, you're in the woods, so you can keep distance, but it can be challenging.
All right. That is a matter that it is certainly on our list, and it is a matter that the planning board has taken really seriously in previous projects, and we would like to have a path forward. What I'm going to recommend is that the applicant and the experts and Jim work through John to make sure you are connected and there's a process that is manageable and sensible and safe to conduct that review, whatever review is necessary. I appreciate what you have done so far. I just want to make sure that we know everything that we need to know about the site as we go forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Pedro has raised his hand.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pedro.
I just wanted to be on the record that the goal of my communication with both tribes is to have that type of survey. And yes, the reason for them visiting the site is to start that survey. So we walk the property on Monday, so she gets familiar with it and she can bring her crew and do it.
Great. I personally appreciate it. And as on behalf of the planning board, I can extend our appreciation as well. It's really important to us to do the best job we can on that. I am going to have to ask about continuing this and what about the decisions, John? What are the dates and parameters on decisions? Phil, I see you there and I forgot to go to you. I will come to you next.
So the decision for the stormwater management permit needs to be continued. The special permit is after the close of the public hearing. So only the stormwater management permit would need to be continued.
Okay. All right. What are our meeting dates going forward?
May 11th. And I want to say that may be the only one in May.
25. All right. We probably don't have another one scheduled in May. What is the feeling of the planning board? We talked about this a little bit of potentially scheduling for May 18th. The 25th is Memorial Day, I think.
Yeah, I had written down at the 18th that we were doing that, but
we talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we were too, but I don't know.
There's a Zach meeting that day.
Oh.
And I thought that we were hoping that maybe Zach could
I don't think Zach has met yet to discuss that.
Okay. Is that their next meeting?
No, they have one May 4th.
Oh, Mary, I can't hear Mary.
Yeah. Mary's muted.
Let me unmute Mary. All right, Mary's unmuted. Oh. Mary's unmuted now.
Hey, Mary.
Yes, we have on May 4th. We can definitely give up the 18th one and try to reschedule that if needed.
That would be really helpful. Here's my proposal is that we try and maintain a big chunk of time, presuming that we are still in this environment. I'd like to make some real progress on this, this application. So if we could continue this to the 18th and then be very selective about what we add to the agenda of the 18th and really dedicate some time to marching through this, that would be helpful. Does that sound good to the board? I should ask the applicant, my goodness. if you have availability on the 18th.
I have availability, Madam Chair.
Pedro, okay.
Yep, as do I.
Okay. Great, Nick. Everybody moves around on my screen. This is super challenging.
I'm sorry, did you say
great.
May 18th, right? Not June.
May 18th. Okay, so we're adding an additional meeting to our previously advertised meetings. And at the moment, you're the only hearing there. And we will endeavor, it helps all of us if you do as much as you're able to do. Not that you haven't been, I'm just saying, and we will endeavor to set aside time to really make progress through this outline. That would mean that we're also going to need an extension on the stormwater decision till the 26th, at least. The 25th is Memorial Day. That's acceptable?
Yes,
Okay.
acceptable.
All right. I will entertain a motion from Gary to extend, to continue this public hearing to May 18th and the decision for the stormwater to May 26th.
Gary Trindle, so moved.
Amy Ritterbush, second.
Okay. Any discussion before we take the vote? All those in favor, a reminder, it's a roll call vote. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Yes, Feinberg, yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Frank?
Frank Durso, yes.
Mary?
Is that Gary or Mary? Mary Larson,
Gary.
Harlow, yes.
Sorry. Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
And I lied straight faced to Phil Paradis when I told him I was going to come back to him, and I totally forgot. But we will, I apologize. We will look forward to, hopefully those comments will be resolved on the 18th, but we certainly appreciate your input. I did read your letter, I promise you, and see the open items still. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item are zoning articles. I am going to suggest that we start with the citizens petition for the proposed amendment for garden apartments in residential districts. Tom Garabedian, can we unmute him? Hi, Tom.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. And do we need anybody else for your citizens petition to be unmuted at this time?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right. Please go ahead and introduce your proposed zoning change.
The proposal is simply to return to the zoning bylaws that existed prior to the annual town meeting in 2016. And basically, it's a matter of equity with respect to those of us in condominiums that we should be provided with town rubbish collection and recycling.
Okay. And John, can you help me out with your feedback or position?
Yep, just scrolling down to the memo part of it.
Yeah, I gotta find it as well. So I'm sorry, but. Mary, did this come before the Zach? I'm sorry.
Yes, it did. Tom spoke to us on several different occasions, and the zoning advisory committee discussed this topic and decided that it was not something that we wanted to take up. We have identified that all of the roads on which the associations are located are private roads, and that, you know, the garden apartment bylaw specified that those developments provided their own trash pickup. At least, and I would love to have this resolved. When we investigated what was changed in 2016, all we found that was changed in 2016 was the removal of a line about burning trash being allowed. And we did not see that that was a year that the garden apartments were specifically, not allowed trash pickup by the town. So, so it would be great if John Galsich could clarify that as well.
I would comment, not specific to that. I read the the bylaw a little bit differently, but I would comment that this has been before Zach for 2 years running, and as a matter of courtesy, there was never any communication with me that this was considered, not considered, tabled, whatever. I mean, I'm a little disappointed that in the ordinary course of deliberation, when somebody comes forward with a request, that there isn't some sort of formal response to say, we've considered it, and for the following reasons, we're not going to recommend it, whatever. I think it's
Appreciate your comment, Mary.
That's a very reasonable thing to comment on. I appreciate that. During the normal course of our work, we have never directly responded to any people who have brought forward any petitions or anything like that. But that is something that we should consider doing. Thank you.
So just to clarify, if I may, this was not, as I believe, discussed at Zach. This was, so most of the other zoning articles are recommended to the planning board from Zach.
Yep.
Since this is a citizen's petition, it was directly brought towards planning board before going to Zach. In the past, that may be different, but since I've been here, I don't believe it's been discussed at Zach. Okay.
Fair enough. You're brand new. Welcome. Not so brand new, pretty seasoned now. All right. I don't know. I brought up Mr. Mayari's letter. Is there any recommendation for change of wording or problems?
So the only issue that town council brought up is that there is no prohibition. There's no prohibition against providing rubbish disposal service. Prohibition has been allowed by the Attorney General for providing rubbish disposal services. So it wouldn't be out of line for the zoning to say that. However, the concern that town council had is the way that the article is currently written, they viewed it as compelling the town to provide services. And so they suggested that if the board were to support this article, they would recommend changing the wording to just remove the prohibition rather than having it in the positive, compelling the town to provide trash.
Okay. All right. So this the article as it's presented is fixed for town meeting. We can't change that, but we could potentially work with the motion. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Can I make another comment?
You sure can, Tom.
And this is in my role as moderator. I'm going to be proposing to the select board and the following as it relates to the situation with the virus, that we attempt to limit the annual town meeting this year to only those articles that are most critical for the operation of the town, and that other articles that don't meet this, whatever the select board considers most critical, might be deferred until the fall for a special town meeting at a time when residents feel more comfortable meeting in a relatively large group setting. I don't know how the select board is going to react to that, but it's certainly something which is under consideration in many other communities around the state.
Yeah. Tom, do you know when that might be discussed, just for the interest of the public?
I just raised the issue with the chair of the select board and the town clerk several days ago.
Okay.
And I hope that we can get together in some sort of a virtual meeting to have a broader discussion with the entire select board and town clerk about that potential.
Yeah, I imagine that. Okay. Anyway, thank you letting us know, letting the public know. Let me open it up to the board to find out how people feel about this petition article, or if you have questions. Frank.
Hi, thanks, Muriel. Thanks, Tom, for joining us tonight. It's always great to hear your voice and see you. I need to think a little bit more about what we talked about tonight, but I think there's been some good discussion so far, and looking to hear what the other board members think as well.
Rob.
So I'm a little unclear. This, just to help clarify, this isn't like, so trash removal wasn't provided to condominiums previously, or was it previously to 2016, and now it is not a service provided to condominiums in Hopkinton?
I think that that's true, but let's ask John to clarify, because I'm not 1,000% on it myself. John?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Prior to 2016 or prior, was trash removal provided by the town to condominiums or garden apartments, as it's defined here, and then taken away, or no?
I don't know for sure. I don't believe so, but I don't know for sure.
Tom, do you know, just in simple terms, what happened? Was there trash pickup at garden apartments and condos prior to 2016?
I presume there was, only from my reading of the change in the bylaw as of 2016. I can inquire of our property manager to see what his experience was with respect to the other developments. Obviously, Davenport Village wasn't in existence at that point, but
right.
I can find out from an actual perspective.
Yeah, I'm happy to encourage you to do that. I think we should do the same thing and just get the history of it. Amy.
Yeah, I looked it up. In 2016, we amended the garden apartment bylaw to delete the last two sentences in the section about rubbish disposal. And so now the bylaw for rubbish disposal on that line is just one line. So I think there were two sentences after it about something else. So the only sentence that remains is rubbish disposal shall be provided for the owner, not by the town. So we removed something, we didn't add something, is my understanding. It's the way I'm reading it, but I'm sure we have an archive on the somewhere.
Yeah, okay. Dave.
Yeah, sorry, two quick questions. One is maybe for the applicant. How would this work? Would you just put out, like, if there's a 30 apartment complex, would you put out 30 barrels, and would that fill up one garbage truck?
Well, I can speak only to the one that I'm in, which is Davenport Village, and you know, each unit has a barrel. Now we happen to contract with Harvey to do the pickup, so they just swing by on the day that they're in the neighborhood. We have chosen not to do recycling because we didn't feel that the type of cost that was associated with it that they were going to charge us was commensurate with the amount of work that was involved.
So I would just say my comment would be that, yeah, for townhouses like that, maybe it's one situation, but then maybe apartment complexes would be a different situation that would have to be addressed. And my second question is for, not to address this through the chair though, but for private roads with homes, does the town pick up garbage?
I believe so. Do you know, John? I mean, I think that we would be inundated with requests for redress if not.
I'd have to talk to DPW about that. I'm not.
So I actually think that we might get some input from DPW anyway, universally. I also would, Tom, you were here at the beginning. We're going to continue this to Monday night, all the zoning articles to Monday night anyway. So we should hear from DPW. We should know the history. And then I'll just share with you my personal philosophy that if you live in Hopkinton and you pay property taxes, I think that you should have the same services as everybody else who lives in Hopkinton and pays property taxes. And from my personal perspective, it's a double hit on people who just live in differently structured communities. So I am philosophically in support of making this change. But the other point I wanted to make is that traditionally, and for all the right reasons, reversing a vote from a previous town meeting can get complicated. We should really know what the decision was then, try to understand what the reasoning was then, and then make our decision as a board whether or not we support this going forward. But it will be on town meeting with or without our recommendation. We just get a chance to make our recommendation. So anybody else have any questions or comments at this time?
So, Madam Chair, Gary and Mary have
Okay.
raised their hand.
Go ahead, Gary.
Just really quickly, I know this is anecdotal, but Sanctuary Lane, which is off of Chamberlain Street, they at least in the 12 and a half years that I've been here, they have never had municipal trash pickup. And there's also a single family residence that actually has access off of that private road, and they do have trash pickup, but they have to bring the trash out to Chamberlain Street, the public road, in order to get it picked up. So the trash truck will not go down Sanctuary Lane, which is a private way. And I also kind of have some similar concerns that were brought up. I mean, I think that I don't know how we apply this to all garden style and condominium apartments. I mean, I think, and I just want to be thoughtful about how we do that before we just open this up to everybody and now we don't have a way to deal with it, because I think that different developments have different ways of collecting garbage. They might have access to trash cans, they might not, but I think that we've just got to be thoughtful before we just kind of put this blanket statement of garbage or rubbish collection out across all of these different types of houses.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi. Okay, so and back to the town meeting, the investigation that the ZAC members did, and I believe Madhu had actually watched the video of the town meeting in 2016, was that, as Amy was saying, lines were removed regarding the incineration of trash. The line regarding trash pickup was provided by the owner of development, by town, was there. So that is definitely something I would like to see clarified for us, because that to me influences a great deal about how we go forward from here. And that is that I believe if this was always part of the zoning for garden apartments and the like, then this was an understanding when people purchased into those types of properties, that this is a service that's provided by the homeowners association, or whatever the case may be, whatever the agreement was for that development, and that their taxes and their homeownership association fees, whatever, factor that in. And that, but it really depends on what was in the bylaw to begin with and what has been changed. So I think that's critical.
So, Madam Chair, I got a comment from Amy that she said before 2016, the bylaw said rubbish disposal. Rubbish disposal shall be provided for by the owner and not by the town. There shall be no outside burning of rubbish. Inside incinerators, which are approved by the planning board, may be allowed. And that those last two sentences, there shall be no outside burning of rubbish inside incinerators, which are approved by the planning board, may be allowed, were the things that were deleted in 2016.
You have to unmute Uriel now.
Oh, we muted the chair. Nice.
He's still
She's still
muted.
mute.
He's still muted.
I muted myself, but then I couldn't unmute myself. Well, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I did that first in the meeting. I said, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, that's it. I'm done with that. Okay, so thank you, Amy, for that additional piece of information. I think that it is a complicated question. I don't know if we have any members of the public who came to speak to this particular. Hold on one second, Dave. I see you. Anybody, John? Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I just want to make one final comment that it's really a general discussion of private road versus public road, because it's not just garbage pickup, but it's snow plowing and it's maintaining the road. So it's a big can of worms, because we did have one private road that tried to get it converted to a public road, and there was lots of concerns about upgrading it.
Right. I remember. So we are clearly not through with this conversation, but we do need to continue so that we can talk about solar farms for a little bit. I know we're going over, but I appreciate everybody's patience. So I will entertain a motion, Gary, to continue this to Monday, the 23rd. Wait, what's the date? 27th.
27th.
Thank you.
Should we wait till we finish all the zoning discussion?
What's that?
Should we wait till we finish all the zoning discussion? Or are we just
This one's
continuing?
separate, I think, isn't it? Is
Oh,
this
because it's a citizen's petition. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So Amy Ritterbush, second.
thank you. All those in favor by voice, by roll call, Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes. And what date are we continuing to?
The 27th, Monday.
Oh, next week. Okay.
Yep. Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Frank?
Frank Durso, yes.
Rob? Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
All right, Tom, thanks so much for hanging in there, and we'll see you again on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Then, because I can't do two things at once on a computer screen, we have the solar overlay district
We also have the sign bylaw.
and the sign bylaw. Can we dispatch with the sign bylaw? I don't think it's, can you ask if any members of the public are here to talk about the sign bylaw?
There's a part of the green.
Doesn't appear anybody's raising their hand.
All right, so we'll include that in the continuation. We won't close that tonight, just so we can have a sensible conversation to close it, but I don't think it's controversial. So the solar overlay district, Mary, do you want to just introduce it again? And
Sure.
I recommend we give it 20 minutes or half an hour if people can hang in there.
On that point, can we, Madam Chair, I need to drop out right now, so I'll talk to you guys on Monday.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
Yep. Good night.
Through the chair, my recommendation would be to not start this discussion right now and push this to the next meeting.
The only reason I am going to push back against that is because we have a lot of people who have waited a long time to speak to this. And I just want to at least make sure we respect people's time and we do it for a little bit. I do understand if people have to drop off.
Through the chair, we made this agenda before we were working in this environment, like through Zoom meeting. The Zoom meeting just
Yeah, I'm
slows
not
everything
going to
down
actually have the
tremendously.
back and forth argument. I'm making a call. I guess if we have a complete mutiny of the planning board, my call doesn't go, but we're going to continue for a tiny bit just to make sure the public has an understanding of the process. I appreciate your respect on that. Okay, Mary, go ahead, lead us off. Mary?
Okay, so the solar overlay district proposal for town meeting came from zoning advisory committee in an effort to place more limits on the use of town of land in the town, parcels in the town for commercial ground-based solar installations. So solar overlay district was found to be acceptable on its face from the Attorney General for places like Weston and Wellesley. And so we utilized those as examples for our proposal, and included initially in the first initial map that came forward, only the 495 corridor and the existing solar farms or approved solar farms not yet built in this overlay district.
That gets me.
Since then, we have We have gotten proposals or requests from landowners for certain parcels to be added to this overlay district. And so I believe that's, the purpose of the discussion today is whether or not we add additional parcels to this overlay district prior to taking it to town meeting, or whether we do not add additional parcels. So.
Okay, and just for the public's clarification, none of these parcels that we're considering were part of the conversations in front of Zach when the overlay district was formulated.
That's correct.
All right. So I'd like to just at least tonight speak to process for a few minutes, as well as make sure we have some time for public comment from members of the public who have stayed long enough to participate in this conversation. And again, I'll say we are going to continue this to Monday, the 27th, and there isn't anything else on the agenda. So I believe that we'll have a rich opportunity to talk to it and resolve a lot of the concerns and issues. Let me just introduce that Gary and John and I talked when we were planning for this meeting, and we have some collective concern about a process that seems rushed for town meeting. And as we alluded to at the start of this meeting, we wanted to introduce a process or a discussion about a process for this article in particular, but any article, in that make sure we include Zach in the process whenever possible, at all times for our zoning articles that go forward. So our thought process centered around discussions of the overlay district as it was proposed, with some delineated concrete process for people. We of course don't know if at town meeting if it will be approved or not approved, but some concrete impact, ability to transparent process that people can understand ahead of time for potentially considering properties to be considered to be added to the overlay district. That was the conversation that Gary and John and I had. So we would recommend that we consider the overlay district. We certainly hear from all members of the public on all the issues that were brought forward for tonight, and likely continue to Monday night on that. But to consider a way forward that makes most sense for the public's ability to be part of the process and impact the process and respond to the process as it's delineated. So I don't know if members of the planning board want to weigh in a little bit first on process, and then I think that we need to go to the public about that, and then I think that we'll probably be ready to continue to next Monday. So so anyway, just thoughts on in general, not particular properties, but adding properties at this point to the overlay district map and a process going forward.
We're waiting for planning board.
Yep. Go ahead, Jane.
I think it's a very complicated procedure that you're introducing at this point in time, because it's a short period of time and it's such a controversial subject. But beyond that, specifically, besides just delaying it to next meeting in June, what did you have in mind specifically?
So we're gonna continue this to Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What I was considering for June, me personally, was holding out hopes that we'd be able to meet in public before we made the final vote on these, if it was necessary, if it continued to be controversial. That's all I was recommending we consider, but not putting it off. I recommend we fully talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question for the chair.
Hold on one second. Deb had her hand up, but thank you. I'll be right to you, Dave. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Dave Paul's response to it, of simplifying what we have moving forward when we go to town meeting, changing the wording, so that it's not in agriculture, it's not in residential, so that it's capturing our intention. And then I think special permits could be granted to those that would be alternative. And we could have a further conversation about how to handle some of those outlayers, and those wishes, to turn other areas into solar farms. And that could be next year's conversation. But I guess I'm leaning towards Dave. Dave, if I'm getting this, if I'm getting your concept correctly, it seems like a first baby step, in creating a district and creating a certain area where solar can thrive, and it meets with everybody's approval. And then sort of take out pieces that will then make it much more, much more like our town, or in keeping with our town's goals. So I just kind of want to backtrack to Dave's idea, although it's not what we have written yet by Zach.
So Dave had his hand up, and I just saw Amy's. Let's just have everybody's comments, and then I'll try and sort of manage the conversation. Dave.
Well, Meryl, I must confess that it's late and I forgot what I wanted to ask, so I'll pass.
Sorry. Amy.
I'm just going to comment that I am thinking at this late stage, since it's so close to town meeting, that we should not add any more properties to the overlay right now, but that we should commit to. There have been some worthy asks, like of other properties. I saw one from the Petersons and the Terrys.
Yeah.
And that maybe we would commit to sending those to Zach to evaluate them against the criteria for next town meeting, once we come up with a more firm criteria.
Yeah, that's exactly
I feel bad they're not
John
included.
and Gary and I were trying. You said it better than I did, but trying to come up with some process that that allows for consideration and additions of particular properties, or in some cases zones, to be added to the overlay district.
Oh, and I should add, I did ask Carolyn Dykema about it, and I think there is some legislation that they're working on that would encourage developing solar fields on brown fields, but not on green fields that already have trees on them. And I don't know when that might get through.
That's been, she said the same thing to Gary and I an awfully long time ago. And I honestly, their hands are full with a lot of priorities right now, but I don't know the status of that either. But I think that if I understood it right, they're wanting to incentivize people to use previously disturbed and brown fields, which I would highly, encourage myself. But I don't think that we can bank on that legislation for the purposes of our discussion, but I would support that, certainly. Anybody else from the planning board who hasn't spoken yet? Rob?
So it's my understanding our first attempt at the map is basically every property that's either currently has a solar field, been approved for one, or approval pending, and we've added in the 495 corridor. So it's basically almost the bare minimum of like what we could do. But then you add in every other property that could have solar as a added use into the property. It covers a large percentage of the town. I know there's people on this call that would like to add their properties, but the reality is right now as a planning board, we have no control over a large landowner just making a solar farm, where we'd have more control if it was a development. And so a lot of townspeople that live in their homes have fear that there's going to be a big solar farm that they would deem undesirable showing up in their backyard. So this first attempt at this is to kind of limit or reduce that fear people living in town that there's going to be a solar farm popping up in their backyard. We've had, I think, 5 to 6 large solar farm projects come before the planning board in the past 12 months, or since May, since I've been on the planning board, and we have almost no control to limit those projects. So that's this proposal is to slow down that unfettered kind of just approval process.
Yeah, it's my understanding too, Rob. Gary.
Yeah. I think to what we talked about before, Muriel, I mean, the idea of picking properties to include an overlay district is hard, and that's one of the reasons that if we move forward with this, I agree that I don't want to sort of open it up and add and subtract to it, but I do wonder if I think given that there's interest in trying to make sure this moves forward to town meeting, I do wonder if it's cleaner and simpler and more straightforward if we consider Dave's recommendation of potentially just allowing or doing something to limit commercial solar developments to specific zoning types that are already in place, such as industrial and commercial. And I know we haven't talked about that, but that just inherently just feels a lot cleaner to me and a lot easier to understand, as opposed to why is this parcel in the overlay and why is this parcel is not, which I just struggle with how we do that in an effective way.
To the chair, that's kind of what I was, what I was trying to say, Gary, you said it so much better than I did. It seems like it's so much cleaner.
So let's conceptually make sure we have that conversation Monday, so we all understand what we feel good about trying to package up for town meeting.
Dave,
I'm sorry?
It's Dave. Can I just suggest that we hear from the public, to your point?
Yeah, totally. Thank you very much. That's what I was going to do next, and then have the bulk of the conversation on Monday. It's all zoning on Monday, so we'll be able to talk a little bit more completely. But I do appreciate the public has hung in here tonight for a very long time. Okay, so if we could ask if there is comment from the public, and John, I'll let you sort of keep me informed about who's speaking.
So Maury Gasser has raised his hand.
Okay, Maury. Oh, you're muted. Hold on one second, Maury. You're muted. Oh, go ahead.
There we go.
Okay, Maury Gasser, 28 South Mill Street. Is it appropriate to comment on the map that I saw at the beginning of this meeting at this point, or is that too much detail?
Yes, but please remember, we're limiting comments to 3 minutes, so be succinct.
Okay, I'm very succinct. I saw the Fruit Street property added,
Yes.
which makes sense, except certainly not all of the Fruit Street property, because there's only a small portion of it that is not conservation restricted area. So I hope that it'll be more precisely delineated at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may just clarify something on that.
Yes.
So the whole Fruit Street property is shown on this map, and can all of you see the map?
Yeah.
Sharing my screen. Yeah. So the entire Fruit Street property is shown here. That doesn't mean that solar is going to be located on it, all these pieces of that property. And to add on to that, it's town owned, so the town would have to go through the process of getting an agreement with a solar developer and have to go through town meeting and all that type of stuff, and it would still need a special permit. So just to kind of mitigate some of the concern, even if it's zoned solar as such, there's going to be a lot of checkpoints where the conservation restrictions, all this other type of stuff is going to come into play, and the solar is not going to necessarily be developed on those portions. If that makes any sense.
Thank you. Do we have any members of other members of the public who would like to speak? Ben. I see Ben raising his hand. Can you unmute Ben Sherko? Does everybody know how to raise their hand virtually?
No.
There's a raise hand button at the bottom of the, if you click on the participants button, it opens up a window, manage participants. It opens up a window and there's a raise hand button on the bottom of that.
Yeah, Deb's been using it all night. I appreciate it. It's awesome. Yeah, so if you click on the participant button on the right-hand side at the bottom is a raise hand so that John will see that you want to speak next. But Ben's up. Go ahead, Ben. Please introduce yourself.
Ben Churko, 147 Lumber Street.
For some reason, you're very hard to hear, Ben.
Okay, bypass me then. How about that? Any better?
Yeah, much better.
Much better.
All right. Through the chair, the letter from town council, has that been read out, or is everyone aware of what town council has said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the record. It's part of the record. We're all obligated to, prepare and read it. So I presume everybody has read it.
Okay, and then just I guess one other question is, as everyone knows, there's other parcels, there's other people who would like to get included, and I've heard discussion that maybe you go to town meeting with another group of parcels next year or in the fall to try to add them, and it just seems like it's a cumbersome approach that maybe some of these people should be considered, including myself and some of the others that are on right now, to be considered at this time. Rather than try to include a bunch more in the fall. That's it. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Ben. Thank you. Anybody else?
So,
I think Ron was waving it.
Yep, Ron, Dana Hall, and Michelle Stillwell have raised their hand.
Okay, Ron?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess I'm listening.
I'm sorry, by process, you have to introduce yourself and your address. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Ron Nation, Smith Road, Hopkinton. I just hear picking properties is the wrong way to do it. You need to feel good about it. I don't think those are objective measures for picking properties. In the property between the northbound and southbound lanes of 495, who owns that land? How would you do solar panels on that land? It seems, to me, it seems preposterous. I think that's the right word. So I don't know. We're picking property. Somebody picked properties, and those were all right. But now somebody else has a property that they think is really right by objective criteria, and they're not allowed in. And it just seems, this whole thing seems so rushed. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're really trying to change zoning for the entire town. Anybody with a 3-acre lot is able to do a solar farm, I believe, in any zone.
Yeah.
And we're eliminating that. And we're going to put it all on 495. It doesn't. I just can't. I can't figure out how that works. Nobody can figure out how it works. I don't see in any record that any solar professionals were consulted.
Well, it says when you avoid an attack, draw a card. So I actually draw 2 for this. Is that right?
Yep.
Town council's ignored. No solar people.
Town council is not ignored, for the record.
Oh, okay. All right. So protect health, safety, and welfare. That's all taken care of, or these are all things.
That's the discussion in front of us, Ron. Okay.
Yeah.
So we welcome you in the discussion. I understand that it's difficult and challenging. We've had a lot of people on the other side have been very heightened. The pandemic has been cited on the opposite side of the argument. We're going to just try and have a reasoned, respectful, responsive conversation. We're all on the same side. We just have different opinions.
Yeah. There's things that the master plan is ignored when we get rid of solar, which is really what's happening here. The solar will be eliminated. Any further solar will be eliminated. other
So
than the town properties.
To be
But it's not-
clear,
Yeah.
right? I
Mhm.
just want to make sure for the record that solar is still allowed as an accessory use. Anybody can put solar on their commercial development, where a commercial development is allowed, in their personal property where it's allowed. It's not eliminating solar. And we like to think about it as trying to sort of control commercial installations from being smack dab in the middle of residential
Right.
properties.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you're saying that this really isn't doing what it says it's gonna do. You can still put a solar panel anywhere in town. It's gotta be-
They're allowed as accessory uses, certainly, and they're encouraged as accessory uses to
Right.
properties.
But not a big one. It has to be a small one, a 3-acre one, I assume.
It's the commercial versus personal use, or it's accessory use. Right?
Yeah.
So we will have the conversation fully on Monday. I wanted to make sure we heard from you, but I can promise you there isn't a single member of the planning board that is ignoring the town council.
Okay. Yeah, because that's where that's where these things end up. If
It is indeed.
and okay, well, I happen to think I have one of the nicest pieces of property for a solar project. It wouldn't be with using objective criteria. No one would see it from their backyard. The answer is all of the questions, and I think I fit 3 or 4 of your items of A, B, C, D. And it's just so maddening that that can't be included because that's picking properties, and that's wrong.
So what I would recommend, Ron, is that for Monday, that you come with your argument that is in favor of including your property, okay? Because the whole discussion is open. What Gary and I and some of us started with was ways to shape it that we hoped were responsive to a lot of diverging needs, okay? But the conversation is open, it's not closed.
Okay. And have you already voted on this?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
You mentioned the final vote a few minutes ago.
So I'm hoping, this is just me, process, I'm hoping that before we take our final vote, we can actually meet in public. But we will continue to discuss this in public in whatever mechanism that we can. Next Monday will, of course, be Zoom again. Okay, so the conversation continues. I'm just hoping with a controversial, high interest zoning article, this is me personally, that we're able to at some point meet with everybody if it's felt like it's needed, with the public being able to physically access the meeting is my point. But I don't know if that's going to be possible, but that was my hope.
Yeah, that seems like it would be huge. Okay.
Okay, who's next?
Look forward to Monday.
So we have Dana Hall, Michelle Stillwell, Dave Paul, and Amy Ritterbush.
Okay, let's go to Michelle. We haven't heard from Michelle yet, I think.
All right, Michelle is unmuted.
Hi, Michelle Stillwell, 63 Teresa Road.
Very hard to hear, Michelle.
Michelle Stillwell, 63 Teresa Road.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. I just noticed the map that you showed a couple minutes ago that was dated January is different from the map dated March. And maybe you addressed this when you talked about the Fruit Street piece. So forgive me if I didn't understand. But what changed in those 2 months that would, well, it's affecting the area near Teresa Road. That's what I'm asking about.
Yes. So I will try to take my best shot at an explanation. So the original overlay district was proposed. We opened the public hearing, and people who came to the public hearing proposed the idea of adding parcels. There was some conversation about that, and a new hearing was advertised. to be able to notice the public and consider the possibility of adding some properties to the proposed overlay district. So the first map from January was the first proposed district that is very limited. And then the second map you're referencing would include properties that people want to be considered to be added to the overlay district as it's proposed. Right now, commercial solar is able to go anywhere in town.
So can I ask another question then?
Of course.
Okay, so what would be the process for abutters or stakeholders, I guess, to convince the planning board to revert back to first map?
This process right here, this is the process, the open public hearing process. And so attending the meetings, speaking up at the meetings, and also sending in your comments or feedback, so it's part of the public record.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does she want to state which parcels she would not want included while she's here? Or
Do you want to specifically give us feedback on, you had said that you would advocate for going back to the original proposed overlay district that was more limited?
Yes, I would. Yes, because I live on Teresa Road and we have a solar farm in our neighborhood and it's horrible. And I don't want another solar farm in our neighborhood. And and there's a dozen people on this call who all wrote letters. We're all saying the same thing. It's awful and we are opposed in the strongest terms.
Yeah. And I think that many of the members who were sitting on this planning board were part of that process. We tried to do a good job with it. I think we've probably I'll only speak for myself. I've been back by to see how it looks. And I understand why people are unhappy with it. And I, wish that it had been screened better. We thought we were doing a really solid job. And then a year later, we put in more substantial screening requirements, hoping that we can do a better job of screening properties if commercial solar farms do go into residential areas. But it is difficult, and it is, from my perspective, speaking just for myself, it's a big impact into a residential neighborhood that I understand why people don't like. I wouldn't like it myself. So that is how the conversation got started to propose an overlay district that limits where commercial solar can go in town.
Okay, right. So when we all come back on Monday night, should we just reiterate the points we all made in our letters? We all line up and say that?
So you may. I encourage you to not think that it's overly necessary. Definitely come, definitely hear the conversation, definitely make the points that are important to you to make. That's what the public hearing process is for. But I want people to know that the planning board has all of that documentation. It's very effective to send letters. It is part of the public record. It is part of what we will consider when we make our final determination. But you are always welcome to come and reiterate your concerns, particularly if the conversation changes how they're being considered.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yep.
Hold on. This is 5.
Maury.
Dana Hall and Dave Paul are here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Let me go back to Dana and then to Dave.
Plastic Man. 789.
Okay, Dana is unmuted.
Yeah, hi, Dana Hall, 62 Teresa Road. I guess I wanted to reinforce, something Muriel said, and maybe even Jane said, that was something so monumental and impacts such a large portion of the community. It seems like we're rushing kind of quick here. It seems like the zoning advisory committee did some work, came up with an initial map. That was the map we were going to proceed with to the town meeting. And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden landowners came out of the woodwork saying, I want to be in two, I want to be in two. And there doesn't seem to be any objective criteria as to why you should be on the map. When I say objective criteria, is it appropriate? How close is it to a residential area? What does the impact to the conservation area, the water streams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? For example, there is precedent. Weston, Wellesley, and Falmouth have implemented solar overlay districts, and they are highly restrictive and only go on commercial and industrial areas. In Weston, the only area that's allowed is on the Old Town landfill. In Wellesley, the only area that's allowed is at the interchange of Route 9 and Route 128. In Falmouth, they put a large area, but then they put covenants in there, basically restricting the amount of deforestation and disruption to the environment and the community. And it seems as if we're going to be good stewards of the land in our town, we should not be going into this really fast and just make any property available to any landowner who thinks it's appropriate. There should be objective, defined criteria that all properties have to meet.
Let's do this. Thank you, Dana.
And I guess
I don't disagree. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the research you did. I'm interested in looking at it myself further. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Dave.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make first a bit of a philosophical point that people are saying that we're rushing and that we should take more time. But I think it was the state that put us in a bad position because they started offering these green credits, which makes this solar farm very lucrative to developers without advising the towns on how they should do zoning to effectively have it done in the right way. So I just want to make that point that we're just trying to do the best to protect the town currently. That's why we're discussing all these options. We've talked about a few options, this current option with the overlay district. We also talked about possibly going with, only industrial and business. And a third option that we could discuss, I don't know if there's an appetite for it, Muriel, but we could have a moratorium, right? We've done that before.
I don't get to buy what's left.
So Dave, I think from a practical standpoint, we can't change, I don't think we can change it to a moratorium from an overlay, but I'd have to ask. John, do you want to fling your?
I think that would be a general bylaw moratorium. And
yeah, and that would be an issue with how the article itself is written. You wouldn't really be able to change how it's written that much.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. It just came to my mind, so I was thinking out loud. But we do have a couple options. We do have a couple options, and I think we should, spend some time over the weekend thinking it and talking more.
I do too. I do too. Anybody else before we continue it to Monday night? I appreciate everybody's forbearance and patience. This is a really awkward format, and I know we're late. What time are we starting on Monday, John?
7 o'clock.
All right. So are there any other public comments from the board?
Just a point of order, we never closed out the Form K.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Can we vote to continue the zoning articles, which is the sign bylaw and the solar overlay? Is that correct? Just those two? All right, so vote to continue the public hearings to Monday, April 27th. Gary?
So moved.
Amy Rodebush, second.
All right. All those in favor by roll call, Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Deborah Feinberg, yes.
Gary?
Gary Rendell, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Amy?
Amy Rodebush, yes.
Mary?
She's muted.
Muted.
You got to be unmuted. Hold on, I'll come back to you. Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
You actually, by process, Mary, I have to hear you say your name and There you go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Okay. All right, Form K. Somebody help me out. What do you want to do with the Form K? Oh, you got, yes, Gary.
Sorry, can I recommend we take no action? Because to some degree, I mean, Mr. McDowell was responding before he got cut off, and I think
Yeah.
that we owe him the right to respond in the way that he wanted to. So
I support that entirely. Is that comfortable? So we'll, can we keep that on the agenda for Monday?
It was not added to the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, already posted.
Yeah, so that means it's to May 11th, just so we know what we're doing. All right. So is
maybe a
everybody
payment will be
comfortable?
made by then.
I'll second it.
I don't think, do we have to, so you're moving no action. Dave seconded. Gary moved it. Dave seconded it. Any other comment? All right, we'll take a roll call on that. And I would say put it on the agenda for May 11th for sure. Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
And her furry friend?
Yeah, this is Emma.
All right. Is there anything else that is open that must be closed before we continue the meeting or close the meeting?
I don't think so, but Stephanie, can you just confirm that?
I don't think so. I don't think we concluded anything.
I
We
wanted to go
concluded the
over-
A&R.
Yeah, yeah. But we don't,
Oh.
we're all set with that, right?
What
Oh,
about the signing?
the plan for signing?
Or maybe John can email us.
I will email out
That's a good
a
idea.
request. I'll find out when somebody's going to be at town hall to actually be able to be there for people to sign it. And
Usually Tuesdays and Fridays.
yeah,
That's
so it
kind of-
might be next Tuesday that we can try and schedule some kind of
All right.
sign up time.
You know what? I might put some times out and you know, the first 5 people that can satisfy them, do it that way, just so it's a little easier. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Gary Trindle, so moved.
Amy Ritterbush, second.
Okay, by voice vote, Muriel Kramer, yes. Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Amy?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Gary?
Gary Trindle, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Good job.
You too.
Good job running it, Muriel.
Yeah, good job, everyone.